Chapter 5003. Hee, Senior, you're wrong. Yi Zhen laughed. Senior, you've only seen one side and one side of the Yilan continent. What about the other realms? The other cultivation realms? Generally speaking, immortal cultivation sects are still much stronger than immortal cultivation families. There are other realms? Xiaohua asked. Based on what your Yi clan knows, other than the 10,000 demon realm and the dark spirit realm, what other realms are there? What other cultivation realms are there? Senior, can you set up a barrier? Yi Zhen did not answer but suggested, what I'm about to say involves the secrets of my Yi clan. Xiaohua nodded and set up the barrier, saying, go ahead. I guarantee that no one on the Yilan continent can hear you. Senior, what other realms are there that I don't know? Yi Zhen answered honestly, these are all recorded in my Jiang clan's messages from the immortal realm. Immortal realm? Jiang clan? Xiaohua was shocked. He finally realized what Yi Zhen had said earlier, the Yi clan is not the Yi clan that you're talking about. Yes, Senior. Yi Zhen said respectfully, my Yi clan's surname is not Yi but Jiang. In order to avoid the eyes and ears of some families in the immortal realm, we changed our surname to Yi. Other families in the immortal realm? Xiaohua felt even more strange and could not help but ask, one clan? Shen clan? Yi Zhen's body shook as if he had been struck by lightning. He looked at Xiaohua in disbelief and asked curiously, could it be that Senior has already met them? Xiaohua smiled. Isn't there a Purple Chin Immortal Alliance in the Dao Alliance? Isn't the one clan in the Water Cloud country there? Yi, Senior is wrong. Yi Zhen shook his head. That one clan is different from the one clan that I'm talking about. I might as well explain it to you. The one clan in Water Cloud country is actually the Mei clan. They're the same as my Jiang clan, not using their real names. They think that only they know, but what they don't know is that my Jiang clan already knew. Xiaohua nodded and said, I don't know the relationship between your Jiang clan, the One clan, and the Shin clan, but I won't hide it from you. I've only heard of these two names from other places, but I've never really met them. Phew. Yi Zhen let out a long sigh of relief and said with a smile, Junior knew it. How could they dare to come to the secular world so brazenly? Even the Jiang clan and the Mei clan have changed their names. What the hell is going on? Xiaohua had already vaguely realized something, but he still frowned and asked. Yi Zhen said with a smile, Senior, there are some things, it's better if this junior doesn't say it so thoroughly. Actually, I don't know much myself. I only know that the ancestral teachings of my Jiang family say that if you meet a tribulation transcendence or Dao integration cultivator who is benevolent and compassionate, you must invite him to visit Yanhan's Han after he ascends to the immortal world. Xiaohua pinched his chin and said, Old man Gu Qiong seems to meet your requirements. Does he know about Yanhan's Han? No. Yi Zhen shook his head. He doesn't know. Although Senior thinks that fellow Taoist Gu Qiong meets the requirements, I don't think he's suitable. To tell you the truth, the name of this place has not been mentioned by the Jiang clan for nearly 400,000 years. When I saw the spiritual root selection method, I understood what you were thinking. I immediately thought of this matter, and I followed old man Gu Qiong to find you for this reason. Today, Senior even told me about the matters of the 3 continents. Junior feels that Junior must tell Senior about it. Whether you want to recruit me or rope me in, I don't want you to lose any opportunity. What kind of opportunity? Xiaohua asked thoughtfully. Yi Zhen shrugged and shook his head. I don't know, but I think that since you are a rogue cultivator, you might as well find someone to rely on when you reach the immortal world. Of course, if you don't want to, just pretend that I didn't say anything. Well, I can think about it, Xiaohua said with a smile. From what happened today, it seems that it's better to gather firewood together. It's good that you can think about it. Yi Zhen was very happy and said, then I'll discuss another matter with you. Oh, there's another thing? Xiaohua felt strange, but he waved his hand and said, before that, can you tell me what kind of families the One clan, Mei clan, and Shin clan are? How are they related to the Jiang clan? Yi Zhen hesitated slightly and replied, generally speaking, the One clan, Mei clan, families in the immortal world, just like the Jiang clan. It seems that they are in different celestial realms. However, I don't know which celestial realms they are in, because there has been no news from the immortal world for a long time. As for their relationship, it seems that they are not on good terms, but I don't dare to ask about the details. Seeing that Yi Zhen seemed to have some unspeakable troubles, Xiaohua didn't force him. He already knew that the One clan and the Jiang clan didn't have a good relationship. If he encountered the One clan in the immortal world, he could go to the Jiang clan. Xiaohua didn't ask in vain for this benefit, so he smiled and said, "In that case I won't ask any more. What else do you want to discuss with me?" Yi Jin immediately relaxed and replied, "This matter is a piece of cake for you, senior. I would like to ask you to take care of the descendants of the Yi clan when you arrive at the lost place." Xiaohua was stunned and suddenly understood. He did not know whether to laugh or cry as he said, "Damn it, I understand now. The Yi clan of the Dawn Rain continent. Could it be that the descendants of the Yi clan were sent to the lost place? Senior has seen the descendants of the Yi clan in the lost place?" Yi Zhen's heart tightened for no reason and he said anxiously, "They didn't offend you, right?" "Haha, they definitely offended you," Xiaohua replied with a smile. "Damn it." Yi Zhen cursed in a low voice and said, "I don't dare to ask for your forgiveness as long as you don't." At this point Yi Zhen did not know how to continue. Did he want to implicate himself? Don't implicate the other descendants of the Yi clan? Fellow Daoist Yi, don't worry about it. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "It's just that someone has a grudge against me, and one of my sworn brothers seems to be related to the Yi clan. So, fellow Daoist, don't worry, as long as the Yi clan doesn't do evil in the lost place, I won't interfere." Xiaohua paused for a moment and said, "I will leave my orthodoxy in the lost place, and the name is the Fortune Gate. If fellow Daoist Yi can send me a message, I will explain everything." Xiaohua came to a realization and asked, "Fellow Daoist Yi, how did the descendants of the Yi clan pass through the Wuming Mountain range? Could it be that you left it until the end?" Looking at Xiaohua's expectant gaze, Yi Zhen replied embarrassedly, "I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you, senior. My Yi clan did not pass through the Wuming Mountain range's special technique, and we also used the transmission tunnel to pass through. However, senior should have seen that my Yi clan has the ability to maintain space, so we have more chances to reach the lost place." "I understand." Xiaohua smiled and cupped his hands. "I accept the Jiang clan's good intentions." Hearing Xiaohua mention the Jiang clan, Yi Zhen's heart calmed down. He then took out a jade scepter-like token and handed it over to Xiaohua. He said, "Since Senior has ascended to the immortal world, Junior does not have any token to give you. However, when Senior returns to the lost place, Senior can take this token and command all the disciples of my Yi clan in the lost place." Xiaohua frowned slightly and did not take the jade scepter. He was clear that authority and responsibility were equal. Since he had the authority to command the disciples of the Yi clan, he naturally had to bear some responsibility. The fortune gate in his hands was 100 times more powerful than the Yi clan. Why would he find trouble for himself for no reason? "Senior." Yi Zhen seemed to have seen through Xiaohua's thoughts and said with a smile, "This token can not only command all the disciples of the Yi clan in the lost place, it can also prove Senior's identity. Without this token, Junior would not be able to send a message to them. Wouldn't Senior have to waste his breath to explain? Moreover, with this token, Senior can punish my Yi clan's traitors. Wouldn't it be reasonable and reasonable? You have a good plan." Xiaohua accepted the token with a smile and said, "Since this Xiao has received benefits from you, I will be a Yi clan elder." "Many thanks, Senior, many thanks, Senior." Yi Zhen was overjoyed when he saw Xiaohua accept the token. He bowed and said, "Senior's action has solved my Yi clan's many years of troubles. The Yi clan in the lost place has been separated from my Yi clan for a long time. This Junior does not know how they are doing in the lost place. If they forget the ancestral teachings and harm the lost place, then my Yi clan will have committed a great sin." "Haha," Xiaohua laughed heartily, "don't worry if they harm the lost place, not to mention this Xiao has your Yi clan's token. Even if this Xiao does not, this Xiao will still punish them. Then I will have to trouble Senior." Yi Zhen took out a jade slip and handed it to Xiaohua. He said, "This is the information my Yi clan obtained about the transmission tunnel in the Wuming Mountain range. However, it is too old, so I don't know if it can be used now." Xiaohua took the jade slip and looked at it before replying, "It's already good enough that you have it." If this Xiao had not tactfully agreed, I'm afraid this jade slip would not even exist. "Hee, Senior, you think too much." Yi Zhen smiled and said, "This Junior has already prepared this long ago. I will definitely give it to Senior." "Good." Xiaohua kept the jade slip and looked at the interface storm that had calmed down. He asked, "Is there anything else, fellow Daoist Yi?" "No." Yi Zhen bowed and said, "This Junior also wishes Senior to successfully pass through the Wuming Mountain range, break the immortal array, and save the billions of lives in the 3 continents. By the way, your Yi clan doesn't have any records of the immortal array?" Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat and he asked again, "Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and..." Chapter 5004. Unfortunately, Yizhen still shook his head and said embarrassedly, Junior really doesn't know. However, since Senior mentioned this matter, Junior will go back and look for it. Alright, then I'll have to trouble fellow Taoist. Xiaohua returned the greeting and opened the barrier. Junior will take his leave. Yizhen took his leave. After Yizhen flew far away, Xiaohua looked at the jade scepter in his hand, shook his head slightly and put it into the space. Then he released his divine sense to check the surroundings. His figure flickered and landed in the direction of the forbidden land of Heaven Wind. After flying for a while, he waved his hands again and a void crack appeared. His figure disappeared into it. Xiaohua had left a divine sense mark at the maze array used by the failure Immortal Union, so it was easy for him to return to the maze array. However, when Xiaohua returned to the bewildering array, he was a little surprised because the bewildering array wasn't as strict as it was before. Instead, many places had collapsed, and the leaking spatial storms had already destroyed the remnants of the bewildering array. It was a complete mess. Several Fortune Gate disciples were sitting cross-legged in the ruins, meditating. Xiaohua's appearance did not attract their attention. Xiaohua landed in midair and released his divine sense. The moment he released his divine sense, the disciples were jolted awake. When they saw Xiaohua, they hastily stood up and saluted, not daring to speak. Xiaohua looked at them and understood. When Long Shenxi had just fallen into the devil path, his dragon blood avatar had already attracted his attention. Later on, Long Shenxi's descent had deepened, and the spatial turbulence had also reached the heavens. Not to mention, the spatial turbulence had been suppressed several times and erupted several times. The entire heavenly wind forbidden land was affected by the spatial turbulence. Since the maze array was inside the forbidden land, it was normal for it to be destroyed by the spatial turbulence. What happened? Xiaohua asked. One of the older Fortune Gate disciples told him what had happened, and it was similar to what Xiaohua had thought. Xiaohua frowned and asked, How are the casualties among the cultivators who came in? The casualties are quite heavy. Disciples have saved a lot of people, but the spatial turbulence was too strong. Disciples can't even take care of themselves. Several disciples whispered, afraid that Xiaohua would blame them. Xiaohua nodded and said, You all did well. My Fortune Gate's teachings were not in vain. Remember, helping others is necessary, but protecting yourself is more important. Don't risk your life for others, if you can avoid it. Yes, we understand. The Fortune Gate disciples breathed a sigh of relief. Two of them reached into their sleeves and took out 2 tranquil wind wheels, respectfully handing them to Xiaohua. Disciples are incompetent, we could only take 2. Haha, I only need 1. Xiaohua laughed heartily. He took the netherwind wheels and examined them carefully. He saw that they were 2 damaged magical artifacts. They looked like wheels, and inside there were 5 axles of different colors intertwined. The outer layer of the wheels was a ring made of flocculating material, and there were also damaged runes on it. Because the rune was already broken, some magic power fluctuations seeped out. These fluctuations fell into the air and gave rise to gusts of cool wind. After Xiaohua finished looking at them, he put the 2 tranquil wind wheels into a universe ring. He took out 2 rejuvenation pills and gave them to the 2 disciples. Then he took out some immortal peaches and spiritual wine, giving each disciple a portion. Only then did he send the Fortune Gate disciples into the Shenhua continent. He left the maze formation and released his Buddhist sense to take a look. Then he concealed himself and flew towards the entrance of the maze formation. At the entrance of the maze formation, Bai Fei was standing there, calm and unruffled. He smiled as he looked at the undulating hills on the ground and the barren rocks near the hills. His aura was firm and steady. Even the thousands of hurricanes wreaking havoc could not tear apart his confident gaze. Unlike Bai Fei's calmness, there were many bloody auras in the tornadoes from time to time. Occasionally, there were some nascent soul realm cultivators with bloodstains all over their bodies. They either looked nervous and panicked, or they carefully passed by with smiles on their faces. However, every time their gazes fell on Bai Fei, there was a trace of envy in their eyes. Swoosh! Within the tornadoes, a figure suddenly rushed out from the hills. Bai Fei looked over and saw that it was Zhuang Chen. At this time, Zhuang Chen's clothes were a little tattered, and there was an ancient green luster in the damaged areas. Zhuang Chen looked a little nervous, but when he saw Bai Fei standing there, his nervousness disappeared. He hurriedly asked, Fellow Taoist Bai, how many days are left until the end of the selection? Aha, fellow Taoist Zhuang, don't be anxious. It's only been about 20 days. There's still a long time before the selection ends. Bai Fei said with a smile. He then asked, "Did fellow Taoist Zhuang find anything?" Haha, of course. Zhuang Chen's face was still simple and honest, and he answered without hiding anything, "If I couldn't find anything, how could I come out so late? What about fellow Taoist Bai?" At this point Zhuang Chen came to his senses and hurriedly said with a smile, "Haha, I said too much. If I can get it, you can naturally get it too." "Fellow Taoist Zhuang, you're a little talkative today," Bai Fei said meaningfully. Zhuang Chen was stunned and grinned, "Of course I'm happy that I can pass the selection." After saying that, he continued to talk. As he wondered if he had done something wrong and was discovered by Bai Fei, he moved his body and stood beside Bai Fei. "Fellow Taoist Zhuang." Bai Fei waited for a while and saw that no one else came out. He asked, "How many dark wind wheels did you get?" "How many?" Zhuang Chen was stunned and asked curiously, "One? What's wrong?" "Nothing." When Bai Fei heard that, he changed his eager gaze to indifference and moved away from Zhuang Chen. After more than 2 hours, there was a loud buzz and a green light rushed out from the hill not far away. The sound of the light was not soft, but the light was a little dim. Beauty Yu staggered out of the light. She did not even look and was about to fly into the distance. "Fellow Taoist." Bai Fei saw this and hurriedly shouted, "I'm waiting here." Beauty Yu was obviously a little surprised. She turned to look at Bai Fei and then at Zhuang Chen. She was a little hesitant, as if she was hesitating whether to come over or not. "Fairy Yu?" Zhuang Chen also shouted, "Come over quickly, we're waiting for you." Bai Fei naturally understood Beauty Yu's thoughts and said with a smile, "Fairy, don't worry. We've all gotten the dark wind wheels, so we won't snatch them from you." Phew. Beauty Yu heaved a sigh of relief and flew over. However, she stopped when she was near and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Bai, fellow Taoist Zhuang, can you let me see your dark wind wheels?" "Of course." Bai Fei raised his hand and took out a dark wind wheel from the cosmic bracelet and said, "Fairy, can you rest assured now?" Zhuang Chen also hurriedly took it out. Seeing this, Beauty Yu finally flew over and said with a bitter smile, "Fellow Taoists, please don't blame me. I managed to get a dark wind wheel in the maze and happened to encounter the collapse of the maze. When I came out of the ruins, I met 2 people. Nascent soul cultivators. They wanted to kill me without saying anything. I had no choice but to flee in panic. Fortunately, the maze collapsed and the storm became stronger. I didn't care about my life anymore and fled into the depths of the maze. Only then did I manage to get rid of the 2 of them." "Damn it." Bai Fei narrowed his eyes and cursed in a low voice, "Fairy, do you still remember their appearance?" "Of course." Although Beauty Yu's appearance was covered by a silk scarf, her tone was obviously surprised. She replied, "How can I forget these 2 damn things?" "All right." Bai Fei said, "After fellow Taoist Yuan Kong comes out, we'll work together to deal with them." "Taoist Yuan Kong?" Beauty Yu sneered and looked at Zhuang Chen, who was not far away. She said, "Why don't you ask fellow Taoist Zhuang what Taoist Yuan Kong did first? What's wrong with fellow Taoist Yuan Kong?" Bai Fei turned his head and asked Zhuang Chen. "Nothing." Zhuang Chen said curiously, "After we separated from fellow Taoist Bai, we found a few more forks. However, when there was only 1 cave entrance, 3 more nascent soul cultivators came. They insisted that they found this cave entrance first. Taoist Yuan Kong argued for a while and then took us to find another fork. He gave the cave entrance to the 3 of them for free." Beauty Yu sneered. "He even said that it was for our own good." Zhuang Chen said straightforwardly, "Among the 3 nascent soul cultivators, 2 of them were middle-stage nascent soul, all right?" Beauty Yu curled her lips and looked at Zhuang Chen. Then she said, "Let's forget about this matter. What happened next? What about before the maze collapsed? When we met the 2 forks that he was hesitant about, I told him clearly. Why didn't he listen? He even spoke ill of me." Zhuang Chen said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Yuan Kong had already used a secret technique and knew that there was movement in that fork. Fairy, you insisted on going to the other one. You can't blame fellow Taoist Yuan Kong, right?" Beauty Yu sneered and said, "I got the netherwind wheel in that fork. What about you guys?" Zhuang Chen was still honest and answered, "There was nothing in that fork and we met 2 forks. Fellow Taoist Yuan Kong couldn't choose, so we separated." "You got the netherwind wheel. What about him? He definitely won't be able to get it." Beauty Yu said disdainfully, "His luck is bad, but he still wants to fight for fame and fortune. It's just a selection and he still wants to be the leader. This kind of person." Without waiting for Beauty Yu to finish speaking, Bai Fei suddenly raised his eyebrows and looked in a direction. He asked curiously, "Eh? Why did Taoist Xiao come out from there?" When Beauty Yu heard this, she hurriedly shut her mouth and looked in the direction of the hurricane. Sure enough, Xiaohua looked back 3 times with every step. He looked left and right as if he was lost and flew from afar. It seemed that he didn't notice them. This Taoist Xiao is also a strange thing. Beauty Yu sneered and muttered in her heart. He doesn't even know the direction, but he actually wants to go to the lost land. What's wrong with me this time? I keep encountering strange humans. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian. Vote for it, save it, reward it. Thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5005. Thinking about this, Beauty Yu looked at Zhuang Chen again. She had already discovered that Zhuang Chen was a little strange, but she had not discovered why. In short, Beauty Yu felt that whether it was Taoist Master Yuan Kong, Zhuang Chen, Bai Fei or Xiaohua, they were all very strange. They were different from the ordinary human cultivators she had seen. Taoist Master Xiao? Bai Fei called out with a smile, I'm waiting here. Oh. Hearing this, Xiaohua hurriedly looked over. After flying for a while, he saw Bai Fei and the others. He let out a long sigh and said, I finally found you. Hee. Bai Fei looked at Xiaohua's neat Taoist robe and said with a smile, so Taoist Master Xiao is a hidden great expert. We were all in a sorry state and were almost buried underground by the collapse of the maze. Taoist Master Xiao, you didn't even lose a single hair. What? The maze collapsed? Hearing this, Xiaohua was shocked. He looked at Bai Fei and the others in disbelief, then looked down at the ground in the fierce wind and asked curiously, why didn't I know? How is that possible? Beauty Yu was curious about Xiaohua to begin with. At this moment she was even more puzzled and asked, we were almost trapped by the collapse of the maze. How could you not know? Xiaohua smiled bitterly and said, I indeed didn't know that the maze collapsed. Because after I parted with Taoist Bai, I entered another fork in the road. There were many forks in the road and not long after I got lost. Even if I wanted to go back to find Taoist Bai, I couldn't. I might as well fly around randomly. Oh, I remember. There was a period of time when the entire maze was shaking and the ground was shaking. Maybe the maze collapsed? I's maze looked very complete and sturdy. It didn't collapse. Did you get the dark wind wheel? Bai Fei frowned slightly. He released the gold-devouring beetles to follow behind Xiaohua, so he naturally knew that Xiaohua's words were true. However, he was too lazy to listen to Xiaohua's explanation and asked, I got it. Xiaohua nodded and said, that place looked very quiet as if no one went there, so I got it very easily. Bai Fei's eyes lit up and he said with a smile, fellow Taoist Xiao is really lucky. When we encountered the collapse of the ground and the collapse of the bewildering formation, we all ran for our lives to escape. You, on the other hand, are looking around leisurely like you're taking a stroll in a courtyard. I wonder how many you've found? 2. Xiaohua didn't hide anything and said, no matter what, this Xiao went in with fellow Taoist Bai. If fellow Taoist Bai's luck isn't good, then this dark wind can be given to fellow Taoist Bai. Flatterer. Beauty Yu couldn't help but snort coldly and say, you're still a headless flatterer. Fellow Taoist Bai has already obtained it. Hee. Bai Fei smiled and said, spiritual Master Xiao, this Bai wants the other Feng Yulun. What benefits do you want? Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He really didn't know why Bai Fei kept talking about benefits every day. He was about to speak. So, below them a sword light shot out. This sword light looked extremely weak, and as soon as it entered the storm, it was blown to smithereens. Then Taoist Yuan Kong's extremely wretched figure charged out from the sword light. Spiritual Master Yuan Kong's robe was torn, and there was no need to talk about his body's protective light being scattered. There was also no need to talk about his exposed arm being badly mutilated. Just by looking at the large amount of dust on his head that he didn't have time to clean up, one could see how much danger he encountered in the bewildering formation. Senior Yuan Kong. Zhuang Chen saw spiritual Master Yuan Kong and was especially affectionate. He hurriedly called out, we're here. Spiritual Master Yuan Kong saw that Bai Fei and the others were standing in the air safe and sound. He was clearly surprised. He hurriedly circulated his magic power, and light flashed around his body as he cleaned up the dust. He took another pill and adjusted his breathing before flying over with a smile on his face. Not bad, you all actually came out of the bewildering formation safely. This old man is very happy. Aye, that's right. Bai Fei went over and sighed, the heavenly Tao is unpredictable. I originally thought that this was the edge of the heaven wind forbidden area and that there wouldn't be too big of a change. Who would have thought that we would still encounter danger? To be able to come back safely is already very lucky. Spiritual Master Yuan Kong nodded in agreement. He looked around and asked, how many days until the selection ends? Bai Fei said, if this Bai remembers correctly, there should still be 7 days. 7 days. Spiritual Master Yuan Kong nodded thoughtfully and said, that's good, we still have a chance. The bewildering formation here has already collapsed, so we can enter from another place. Don't worry, this old man will definitely help you all obtain the Netherwind Wheel. Spiritual Master Yuan Kong waved his hand and said, come, follow this old man. Spiritual Master Yuan Kong flew for a few breaths and didn't see Bai Fei and the others following him. He couldn't help but stop and call out, it's just a bewildering formation collapsing, and you're already scared out of your wits? This. Zhuang Qin hesitated. Seeing that the others didn't speak, he could only say himself, Senior, we have already obtained the Netherwind Wheel. Oh. Spiritual Master Yuan Kong was surprised and a faint blush appeared on his wrinkled face. Beauty, you said faintly, we have already obtained it. Spiritual Master Shao even picked up too. Ha, very good, very good. Spiritual Master Yuan Kong heard this and laughed in jealousy. He flew in front of Xiao Hua and said, Spiritual Master Shao, is your extra Netherwind Wheel useful? If it's useless, this old man will exchange it with the storage ring of the Immortal Alliance. As he spoke, Taoist Yuan Kong placed the storage ring in front of Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua looked at the storage ring and then looked at Spiritual Master Yuan Kong's eager gaze and the wrinkles on his face. He felt sympathy in his heart. He wanted to give the Netherwind Wheel to Spiritual Master Yuan Kong and fulfill his wish. However, he also understood that with Bai Fei, Beauty Yu and Zhuang Qin following him to the Lost Land, this nascent soul human cultivator would definitely be played to death by the three of them. Moreover, even old man Gu Qiong didn't dare to rashly try to pass through the teleportation tunnel through the Wuming mountain range. Xiao Hua really couldn't understand why this nascent soul cultivator wanted to die. If he gave the Netherwind Wheel to him, wouldn't it be the same as letting him die? Spiritual Master Yuan Kong. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua said resolutely, the Lost Land sounds like a paradise, but in reality, don't you think it's not worth it for us to take such a risk? In the Yilin continent, there are cultivation methods and medicinal pills. You can have whatever you want. Why must we go to the Lost Land? Moreover, I heard that passing through the teleportation tunnel is extremely dangerous. Obtaining the Netherwind Wheel only means that we have the ability to pass through the teleportation tunnel. It doesn't mean that we can definitely pass through safely. Since fellow Taoist can't obtain the Netherwind Wheel, it means that you have no fate with the Lost Land. Frankly speaking, fellow Taoist doesn't have the ability to pass through the teleportation tunnel. I gave you the Netherwind Wheel. Although you have obtained the right to choose in reality, won't you be giving fellow Taoists life in vain? Honest words were always unpleasant to the ear. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to finish, Spiritual Master Yuan Kong's face turned red and he roared, damn it! If you think this storage ring is too little, just say it directly. You are greedy and yet you say this old man is useless. You middle-stage nascent soul cultivators can pass through the teleportation tunnel. This old man is already close to late-stage nascent soul. How can this old man not pass through? You're really angering this old man to death. Zhuang Qin lowered his head honestly and didn't say anything. Beauty Yu's face hidden under the silk scarf sneered and didn't say anything. Xiao Hua looked on indifferently. The sympathy in his heart gradually disappeared. In this world, there were always some people who felt that they were omnipotent and omniscient. However, these people were just pitiful worms who thought they were extraordinary. Perhaps pitiful people must have something hateful? Say it. What price do you want to give this Netherwind Wheel to this old man? After Spiritual Master Yuan Kong roared, he gnashed his teeth and looked at Xiao Hua with a somewhat sinister expression. Xiao Hua shook his head slightly and didn't answer. He, Senior. Bai Fei hurriedly flew over and said with a smile, Senior, don't be angry. Senior, don't take fellow Taoist Zhao's words to heart. With your strength, wouldn't it be easy for you to obtain the Netherwind Wheel from the bewildering array? Back then, wasn't it because of Senior's secret technique that we found the entrance to the bewildering array? Spiritual Master Yuan Kong snorted coldly and shifted his somewhat resentful gaze away from Xiao Hua. He looked at Bai Fei and said, how can this old man lower himself to his level? That is, if you wait at the side. Bai Fei hurriedly stopped Spiritual Master Yuan Kong's malicious words and said in a low voice, actually, this Bai will also tell fellow Taoists the truth. This Bai didn't obtain the Netherwind Wheel. Just now, this Bai already told Spiritual Master Shao about this matter. He was too embarrassed to reveal this buy's matter. Oh, so that's how it is. Spiritual Master Yuan Kong believed him and the anger on his face subsided. However, he still said, even so, this guy shouldn't speak to this old man like that. Who does he think he is? Yes, this Bai apologizes to Senior on his behalf. Bai Fei said with a smile, Senior is magnanimous. Please don't lower yourself to our level. Oh, of course, if Senior doesn't want to go into the bewildering array again, this Bai will immediately give the Netherwind Wheel to Senior after obtaining it. However, at this point, Bai Fei lowered his head to look at the trembling of the storm and bitterly smiled. This Bai has already been scared out of his wits by the collapse of the bewildering array. I'm afraid that only an expert with such profound cultivation like Senior would have the guts to enter the tiger's den again, right? Humph, isn't it just a bewildering array? Since this old man can come out, naturally I can go in again. Spiritual Master Yuan Kong was emboldened by Bai Fei's words. He proudly said, you all wait here for a while. This old man will be back soon. But, Bai Fei hurriedly said, Senior, we all have injuries on our bodies. It's hard for us to stay in this hurricane for long. Senior, please see if we can leave first. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, gift, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 5006. Return to the Special Envoy's flying ship for now. Spiritual Master Yuan Kong's face was full of disdain, and even had a reprimanding tone as he said, if you can't even withstand this kind of storm when you reach the lost land, you won't be able to accomplish anything. Hehe, how can we accomplish anything? Bai Fei smiled and said, don't we still have to follow Senior's command to have some gains? It's good that you understand. Spiritual Master Yuan Kong said, and sword light surged around him as he flew into the distance. Xiao Hua opened his mouth but closed it again. At this time, most of the maze had already collapsed and there were no more entrances. With Spiritual Master Yuan Kong's cultivation, he probably couldn't even find the entrance. If he hit a wall, he would leave without any face. Spiritual Master Xiao. Bai Fei turned and said, actually, you don't have to say these words to Yuan Kong. You just have to say what you just said. Bai Fei didn't transmit his words and Xiao Hua, Zhuang Chen and Beauty you all heard it. Xiao Hua naturally understood what he was saying and he smiled and said, I don't want to lie to him. Fellow Taoist is ignorant. Bai Fei smiled and said, lying to him is saving him. Unfortunately, he doesn't understand. Here. Xiao Hua threw a wind underworld wheel to Bai Fei and asked curiously, could it be that you really didn't get the wind underworld wheel? What do you think? Bai Fei took the wind underworld wheel, shrugged and said to Xiao Hua and the rest, let's go, there's no need to wait for Yuan Kong. He won't return to the Special Envoy's flying ship. No way. Zhuang Qin panicked and shouted, fellow Taoist Yuan Kong won't die in the maze, right? The maze has already collapsed. Where can he find the wind underworld wheel? Beauty you whispered, he didn't even get the wind underworld wheel as an old senior, how can he have the face to come back? Besides, if he didn't get the wind underworld wheel, he didn't pass the selection. Why would he return to the Special Envoy's flying ship? Oh, I understand. Zhuang Qin scratched his head and Xiao Hua looked at a demon so pretentious, Xiao Hua really despised him. Bai Fei brought Xiao Hua and the others back to the envoy's flying ship. They saw the huge envoy's flying ship standing tall in the violent hurricane. However, the light protecting the flying ship was distorted by the hurricane. It was like the clothes placed on a drying pole in the secular world being blown up high. At this time, the disciples of the Immortal Alliance who were patrolling around the envoy's flying boat had already hidden outside the defensive light shield. No one was flying around anymore. Seeing that the Special Envoy's flying ship was approaching, Bai Fei stopped and said with a smile, you all go ahead first. This Bai still has some personal matters to attend to and will return immediately. Alright. When Xiao Hua and the others heard this, how could they not know that Bai Fei's matter was related to the extra wind underworld wheel? They glanced at each other and flew towards the Special Envoy's flying ship. Seeing that someone was flying back, the Special Envoy's flying ship's defensive brilliance opened, and several disciples revealed themselves. After inspecting Xiao Hua and the others, Feng Yoluan let them in. Seeing Xiao Hua and the others enter the Special Envoy's flying ship, Bai Fei's figure flashed and flew to the tail of the Special Envoy's flying ship. When the distance was suitable, he took out a thumb-sized jade bracelet from his arms. Under the urging of his spiritual power, the bracelet rushed into the hurricane and fell into the Special Envoy's flying ship's defensive light shield and disappeared. After about a meal's worth of cultivation, Yi Yun held a protective magic weapon and carefully flew out. When she saw Bai Fei standing there, her eyes were filled with tenderness. She hurriedly looked back as if she was afraid of being discovered. "Senior?" Yi Yun flew closer and asked in a low voice, Why did you call this junior over?" "Nothing." Bai Fei smiled and said, "It's just that I haven't seen you for a few days and wanted to see you." "Senior?" Yi Yun's face was red with embarrassment. She lowered her head and said, "It's already the end of the selection. Why did Senior not go to the maze to look for the Wind Underworld wheel and only think of this junior?" However, this junior heard that there was a huge change in the maze and many cultivators died in it. Seeing Senior standing here safely today, this junior's heart can be at ease. "Yun Bai Fei suddenly approached and called out in a low voice. Yi Yun was obviously caught off guard. She was shocked and hurriedly retreated. However, she only retreated a few feet before stopping. She flew forward 2 feet and lowered her head. Her neck was obviously red. There's no need for this Bai to talk about this Bai's background. This Bai will definitely go to the lost place. Bai Fei did not fly any closer, only leaning slightly against Yi Yun as he spoke in a low voice. "However, on this Yilin mainland there are people and matters that this Bai misses, so this Bai cannot leave in peace. Therefore this Bai has called you out today to give this item to you." Yi Yun's voice was as soft as a mosquito. Although she did not dare to raise her head, she still replied, "This tranquil wind wheel is something that this Bai obtained in the maze, and risked my life to obtain another one." Bai Fei handed the tranquil wind wheel to Yi Yun and said, "This Bai is giving it to you, I hope you have a choice. Of course this Bai will be happy no matter what you choose. Remember what this Bai said in the Wumeng Mountains. As long as you are safe I will be at ease." "Fei." Yi Yun looked at the Wind Underworld wheel and could not help but whisper, "You?" Bai Fei placed the Wind Underworld wheel in Yi Yun's hand and hooked a finger on her palm. He said considerately, "You don't have to answer now. Think about it. Treat this Wind Underworld wheel as a memento of our meeting in this life." Yi Yun wanted to say something but Bai Fei shook his head and urged, "Hurry up and go back. If you stay too long someone will find out." "Okay." Yi Yun hurriedly put away the Wind Underworld wheel and bit her lips. Looking at Bai Fei's handsome face, she nodded and hurriedly left. Seeing that Yi Yun had entered the special envoy's flying boat, Bai Fei suddenly glanced in a certain direction and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. His figure flashed and landed on the other side of the special envoy's flying boat. He checked Feng Yuluan and entered the flying boat. After a while, Jiyu flew out of the place Bai Fei looked at with a puzzled expression. Xiaohua, Zhuangqin, and Beauty Yu flew back to the special envoy's flying ship. The disciple on guard inspected the Wind Underworld wheel and returned it to them. He also took out more than 10 storage rings and gave 5 to each of them. Zhuangqin took the rings and scanned them with his divine sense. He immediately exclaimed, Why are there so many?" The disciple on guard's eyes also flashed with admiration and said with jealousy, "Senior and the others are really lucky." Originally, the special envoy was prepared to reward each senior with 2 rings after they succeeded. But later, the heavenly wind forbidden area changed and a rare storm appeared in the center. This storm blew the special envoy's flying ship over. Later, I heard that the maze collapsed and many seniors died inside. So, the special envoy ordered that those who can return will be rewarded with 5 storage rings. Moreover, after 30 days, the remaining storage rings will be equally distributed to the seniors who passed the selection. "Ah, so that's how it is. We're rich." Zhuangqin grinned and carefully put away the storage rings. "Seniors, please follow this junior. The flying ship has prepared a quiet room for seniors. Seniors, please meditate inside." The disciple said respectfully, "Seniors must be tired, so this junior won't disturb you. When the selection time is up, the flying ship will fly back to the Defeat You Immortal Union on time." Moreover, the special envoy also said that if there are no other accidents, the flying ship will not stay in the Immortal Union and will directly fly to the Wuming Mountain Range. In addition, there is a secret technique to refine the Wind Underworld wheel in the storage rings. Seniors, please complete the refining of the Wind Underworld wheel during this period. The 3 disciples said and led the 3 people into the cabin. After opening the 3 quiet rooms, they bowed and saluted. Beauty You did not stay. She ignored the 2 and entered the quiet room alone. In a moment, restrictions appeared around the quiet room. Zhuangqin walked 2 steps and felt that it was inappropriate. He stopped and turned to ask, "Daoist Xiao, do you think Daoist Yuan Kong will be in danger? What do you think?" Xiao Hua looked indifferently at this devil and asked. Zhuang Qin suddenly saw a trace of disdain in Xiao Hua's eyes. He panicked in his heart, knowing that he had painted a snake with legs, and said with a smile, "The old man is actually very good, I hope he can come back safely. Returning is better than leaving." Xiao Hua looked over and said, "If he comes back, won't he be played to death by you guys?" Ah, Daoist Xiao is joking. Zhuang Qin smiled and quickly entered the quiet room. Xiao Hua looked at the 2 quiet rooms created by restrictions and was too lazy to pry. He just stood quietly in front of his quiet room. Sure enough, after a while, Bai Fei also came over under the lead of a disciple. After that disciple saluted and left, Bai Fei looked at Xiao Hua with a smile and said, "I knew that you would be waiting for me here. Have you decided to bring her?" Xiao Hua said straightforwardly. "Yes." Bai Fei naturally knew who Xiao Hua was talking about and nodded. Xiao Hua shook his head slightly and said, "I don't think this is appropriate. First, her cultivation is not enough and she may not be able to pass through Wuming Mountain Range. Second, if you bring her, that person will definitely stop you. In this way you and I may not be able to go." Bai Fei said disapprovingly, "Since Liu Immortal Alliance allows Jindan stage disciples to go, then she will definitely have a chance. Moreover, you can rest assured that there are not many cultivators who pass the selection this time. Liu Immortal Alliance will definitely send more disciples to go with us. If others can go, she can naturally go too. As for that person, you can rest assured. Since that person said that he will let go, then he will not interfere. This is her choice. Even if that person stops her, she will definitely go back. The matter between you and me cannot be delayed." "Alright. I hope your guess is not wrong." Xiao Hua sighed and compromised. "I do not want to face a late nascent soul stage cultivator again. It is only late nascent soul stage, there is nothing to be afraid of." Bai Fei said and was about to turn around. Xiao Hua suddenly called out to Bai Fei with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Bai, are you going to leave now? P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, thank you for all forms of support." Chapter 5007. Bai Fei was stunned and immediately understood. He smiled and took out 2 storage rings from his bosom and handed them to Xiao Hua. He said, "I didn't talk about any deal with you before, but since Yuan Kong gave you a storage ring as the price, I can't treat you unfairly." Thank you." Xiao Hua smiled as he received the storage ring and said, "That netherwind wheel was merely picked up. This poor Taoist thought that fellow Taoist giving me 1 storage ring was already good enough. Since you insist on giving me 2, then this poor Taoist will be disrespectful." After Xiao Hua finished speaking, he floated into the quiet room and activated the restriction of the room. With a smile on his face, Bai Fei shook his head slightly and then entered the quiet room. However, when he activated the restriction of the quiet room, the expression on his face changed instantly. He paced around the quiet room a few times and whispered, "Xiao Yu, this Taoist Xiao is getting more and more strange, what do you think?" "Master." Xiao Yu's voice sounded faintly, "You should be worried about that beauty Yu and Zhuang Qin, not this real human." "Why, have you changed your opinion?" Bai Fei stopped and asked, "Do you think Taoist Xiao is a real human?" "Yes." Xiao Yu replied, "Compared to Beauty Yu's aura, I feel that Taoist Xiao is a human who has cultivated the demon race's cultivation method." Beauty Yu, interesting. Why does a demon race want to go to the Lost Land?" Bai Fei rubbed his chin and asked in confusion. "I don't know why she wants to go to the Lost Land, but I know that if Master doesn't deal with it carefully, he might fall into her trap." Little Master reminded, "As for Taoist Xiao, Master has already made a decision, but he doesn't believe in his good luck." "That's true." Bai Fei smiled and said, "This guy is really bad at directions. He ran around in the maze without any order at all. My primordial spirit followed him and was about to get lost, so I had to call back the gold-devouring beetles. It's precisely this kind of person, fools have fools' luck. He got 2 transcendent wind wheels without any effort. It's meaningless for him to get 2 wind wheels." Xiao Yu complimented, "It's just a big gift for Master. In the end, this luck still belongs to Master." I was just worrying about how to express my feelings to Yi Yun, and now he's offering the netherwind wheel. I wonder if he's lucky or if I'm lucky." Bai Fei smiled proudly. However, he stopped after a while and asked, "Oh right, you said that Zhuang Qin might be a demon. How did you find out?" "Reporting to Master." Xiaoya replied, "This Zhuang Qin's strength is very strong. Master is about the same as him. With my strength I wouldn't be able to tell. However, when he escaped from the maze just now, he left behind a trace of the demon clan's aura. That was how I discovered it. Damn it. Bai Fei cursed in a low voice. A devil? What's he going to Daybreak Continent for? The Heavenly Devil sect has already turned the entire continent upside down. Wouldn't it be even more troublesome if a late nascent soul stage devil clan cultivator was added to the mix? Perhaps this demon is looking for the Heavenly Demon sect that Master mentioned? Xiaoya speculated. That's even better. Bai Fei rolled his eyes and said, let this demon find trouble with the Heavenly Demon sect. I'll just sit back and reap the benefits. Xiaoya suddenly said, but what if this demon is in cahoots with the Heavenly Demon sect? If that's the case, our Taoist Master Xiao will be useful. Bai Fei replied. Master's plan is flawless. Victory is in your grasp. I admire you. Xiaoya's voice sounded like she was truly convinced. The spiritual herbs in this world should have matured by now, right? Bai Fei suddenly asked again. Yes, Master. Xiaoya replied excitedly. Although there's no spiritual qi in this world, Master's spiritual liquid is too magical. That flying cloud fruit is at least 10,000 years old. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I definitely wouldn't have believed it. That's nothing. Bai Fei smiled slightly. Pick that flying cloud fruit. I'm going to refine the void cloud pill. Void cloud pill? Xiaoya was stunned and asked curiously, what void cloud pill is Master refining now? We're about to head to Wuming Mountain Range. At this point, Xiaoya suddenly understood something and said, so Master is doing this for Yi? Don't you think you're talking too much? Bai Fei said coldly. However, there was no change in his expression. Yes, I deserve to die, I deserve to die. Xiaoya's voice became lower and lower. Do your own thing. Don't talk too much. Bai Fei scolded. No one will think you're a fool if you don't talk. For a moment, the quiet room was as silent as night. After a while, Bai Fei raised his hand and took out a fist-sized elixir furnace from his storage ring. He opened his mouth and a cluster of true samadhi fire rushed out. Then, Bai Fei rubbed his hands and was about to start refining the elixir furnace. However, he changed his mind and pointed at the spirit storage ring. Several gold-devouring beetles flew out. Bai Fei chanted a mantra and attached a few strands of his primordial spirit to the gold-devouring beetles. Several gold-devouring beetles flapped their wings and rushed to the quiet room. Bai Fei activated his celestial artifact and released the gold-devouring beetles. When the gold-devouring beetles invaded the quiet room, Xiaohua was sitting cross-legged and cultivating. His eyelids twitched and he ignored them. After obtaining the water origin, he had obtained too many ultimacies and had no time to comprehend them. He wanted to cultivate in seclusion immediately, but he had to send old man Gu Qiong and the others away. On the contrary, the Thunderbolt Immortal, the Heavenly Being, and the other doppelgangers, including the Demon Lord Shi, were slacking off and carefully comprehending the water origin ultimacy. They ignored Xiaohua and were cultivating. Since Xiaohua had returned to the quiet room, why would he care so much? His mind had already entered the starry sky of the Heavenly Tao. Together with the Heavenly Tao Xiaohua, he comprehended the ultimacy of heaven and earth bit by bit. When the 6 origins fell into the starry sky of the Heavenly Tao, they all revealed their ultimacies. Just those ultimacies alone were enough for Xiaohua to comprehend. Now that the water origin had entered the starry sky, it could be said that the 5 elemental origins had reached perfection. All kinds of ultimacies were revealed in front of Xiaohua. All kinds of freshness and excitement flooded Xiaohua and the Heavenly Tao Xiaohua like waves. After a few more days, the special envoy's flying ship didn't delay at all. It shone brightly in the spatial storm and soared into the sky. In the distance, in a mountain valley, the Taoist Yuan Kong flew out from the ground, dispirited and unwilling. He watched as the flying ship turned into specks of light and disappeared. His body seemed to have been stripped of its bones as he sat on the ground, paralyzed. After half a meal, he lowered his head, bent his waist, and urged his sword light to slowly leave. He was destined to be mediocre for the rest of his life, but this mediocrity also allowed him to enjoy peace. Perhaps he still hated Xiaohua, or perhaps he still imagined that something strange would happen when he arrived at the Lost Land. However, there were no hypotheses in life. What didn't happen could only be guesses. Or perhaps, if the Taoist Yuan Kong had passed the selection, he would have passed the Wuming Mountain Range and died early in the wilderness? Xiaohua thought that after passing the selection, he would soon be able to go to the Wuming Mountain Range. The special envoy's flying ship did as he wished. It didn't stop and immediately rushed to the Wuming Mountain Range. However, this flight took several years. Several years couldn't be considered long. Bai Fei's Void Cloud Pill hadn't been completed, but several years couldn't be considered short either. Bai Fei had already put away the gold-devouring beetles. He was too lazy to watch Xiaohua cultivate day after day. However, in these few short years, Xiaohua's body underwent a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering transformation. Xiaohua's mind entered the starry sky of the heavenly Tao to comprehend the five elemental origins ultimacies. This kind of harvest wasn't something that Bai Fei could imagine. In Xiaohua's body, the starry sky nascent soul and hundreds of nascent souls had also completed their transformation. Xiaohua's starry sky nascent soul was different from the nascent souls of ordinary cultivators. He cultivated the immortal world's scattering nascent soul technique. Moreover, the scattering nascent soul's ninth lightning tribulation was in the 10,000 demon realm. Therefore, after these scattering nascent souls passed the tribulation, they didn't produce any immortal qi. But after Xiaohua had returned to the Yilin continent, ever since the Tao seed had been planted, these hundreds of scattered souls began to produce strands of immortal qi. In a few years' time, 70% of these scattered souls who had passed the ninth tribulation had transformed into immortal qi. If it weren't for Xiaohua's physical body and Su Ji's immortal talisman, Xiaohua would have already ascended. In addition to Xiaohua's scattering nascent souls, the Thunderbolt Immortal also had obvious changes. Although he cultivated the primordial spirit technique from the upper realm, 60% of the true essence in his body had transformed into immortal qi. Celestial being, Taoist sorcerer, and the others also had changes. Moreover, the changes were very profound. However, Xiaohua was a little anxious and didn't have time to observe carefully. Today, after comprehending the profound meaning, he took his mind out of the space and pondered whether he should go to the Wuming Mountain range alone. Just as he was thinking, there was a slight vibration outside the quiet room. Xiaohua raised his hand and a yellow talisman in the shape of a dove flew in. When it arrived in front of Xiaohua, it turned into ashes with a tang. A rather dignified voice was heard from it. Everyone, we will reach the edge of the Wuming Mountain range in 10 days. This old man's flying boat can only send you up to here. I, Xiong Tianjing of the Defeat Oak Immortal Alliance, will send you off on the flying boat at that time. Please be prepared to welcome Xiong Tianjing. After the voice finished speaking, the ashes fell to the ground and the quiet room returned to its original tranquility. AI were finally here. Hearing that they would reach the Wuming Mountain range in 10 days, Xiaohua sighed and sat down cross-legged again. This should be the last danger in the Dawn Rain continent. When he thought of the Dawn Rain continent, Xiaohua couldn't help but think of Fairy Hong Xia, Jiu Xia, Huang Mingxiang and the others. Of course, the voices and smiles of Zhuo Hongxia, Xiang Yang, and the others also flashed through his mind like a merry-go-round. Even many memories came one after another like horses galloping. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, tip it, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 5008. Are these people still alive in this world? Xiaohua thought to himself. After all, it's been 1,000 years. The more he thought about it, the more agitated he became. Xiaohua simply focused on the yin side of the space. At this time, the yin side of the space was the same as the yang side of the space. It had already begun to take shape. Beneath the Xinhua continent, the netherworld blood sea was surging, and the netherworld fruit tree had turned into a continent that covered a large area of the blood sea. Countless netherworld beasts were gradually born. Even under the other spaces, there was a corresponding blood sea flowing, and the netherworld fruit tree had extended more branches into it. However, between the yin sides of these different spaces, there were some barriers that separated the yin sides of these spaces. Xiaohua didn't have the mind to look at this dark netherworld. Instead, he landed on the most special island in the blood sea. The netherworld lotus was still the same netherworld lotus, but the aura of the lotus was increasingly vigorous. This aura seemed to be connected with the entire yin side of the space. The flickering of the netherworld lotus was like the breathing of the yin side of the space. Between light and darkness, the entire space was shaking. Beside the netherworld lotus, there was also a motionless stone statue. The stone statue didn't look any different from last time. The small nose and small eyes reminded Xiaohua of Zhang Xiaohua's transformation. Shua shua. Jade Archive. Xiaohua looked at the netherworld lotus and whispered, I'm finally going to return to the Dawn Rain continent. However, after saying this, Jade Archive. Xiaohua closed his mouth again. He seemed to have thousands of words in his heart, but they were all stuck in his throat. Only this sentence was the first to be squeezed out. Perhaps it was because silence spoke louder than words. Xiaohua didn't say another word. He just quietly looked at the netherworld lotus, just like how he quietly looked at the sleeping Xue Xue, allowing the tears in her eyes to wet his Taoist robe. Master. Jade Archive Xiao Hua then flew to the netherworld bamboo and whispered, "In your eyes, disciple has always been a disappointing disciple, causing you to lose face. Disciple was willful in the past and felt that it was fine as long as I cultivated well. It had nothing to do with face. But disciple ignored master's feelings. Disciple knows he was wrong. Master, please don't worry. Disciple will return to the Imperial Thunder Sect, to the Dawn Rain continent. Disciple will definitely obtain the glory you wish for 1,000 times, 10,000 times for you. Although this disciple still doesn't like these things, this disciple knows that master likes these things. This is enough." After he finished speaking, Jade Archive Xiao Hua's heart stirred as he thought of another matter. He frowned and said, "Oh no, I forgot about this child. Now that I've arrived at the edge of the Wuming Mountain Range, I should end this karma as soon as possible. I'm afraid I won't have the time to meet Vice Alliance leader Xiong." Subsequently, Jade Archive Xiao Hua left the space and released the Dream Mirage Butterfly. Then, with a wave of his hands, he tore open the void and flew out of the Special Envoy's flying ship. Xiao Hua's figure appeared in the distant sky. He looked towards the place where the sun rose, only to see that the distant horizon was gray. An indescribable pressure came from the gray, heavily pressing down on Xiao Hua's heart. Xiao Hua understood that it was the Wuming Mountain Range. Xiao Hua released his divine sense and looked around. His figure flickered as he teleported towards the east. A moment later, Xiao Hua's figure appeared on top of a mountain. After standing still, Xiao Hua thought for a moment and raised his hand to take out the Kunlun mirror. Under the urging of his magic power, he pulled Nuo Yeqing out of the Xinhua continent. Nuo Yeqing was sitting cross-legged in meditation. Xiao Hua liked her even more than Xiang Zhili's jumpiness. Xiao Hua couldn't bear to disturb his meditation and just stood quietly beside him, watching the sun rise in the distance. The gorgeous sunlight shone through the clouds on the ground. Caw. A bird's cry broke the tranquility of the valley. Nuo Yeqing's eyes moved and opened. She saw the unfamiliar scenery and Xiao Hua's figure standing with his hands behind his back. Nuo Yeqing hurriedly bowed and said, "Junior greets Senior Zhang. You can get up." Xiao Hua didn't turn back but looked in the direction of the Wuming Mountain Range and said, "Come and see." "Yes, Senior." Nuo Yeqing didn't dare to neglect and stood behind Xiao Hua, looking towards the east. Seeing the gray sky, Nuo Yeqing's eyes flashed and she didn't speak for a long time. Finally she whispered, "Senior, this is the Wuming Mountain Range, right?" "That's right." Xiao Hua's voice was also a little low. "With the flying boat speed, there are only 10 days left. I don't know if you want to go into the Wuming Mountain Range or to the edge of the Wuming Mountain Range, so I let you out here." "Thank you, Senior." Nuo Yeqing's chest was warm and she knelt down and kowtowed. "Junior will never forget Senior. Get up." Xiao Hua shook his head. "It's just a small matter for me to help you. The one you should thank is your master. He taught you martial arts since you were young." As he spoke, Xiao Hua waved his hand and called Lu Qingyu and Yue Hua out. As soon as the two came out, they immediately bowed respectfully to Xiao Hua and said, "Junior greets Elder Sect Master. You can get up now." Xiao Hua helped the two up and said, "The Wuming Mountain Range is in front. You can say goodbye to Yeqing here. His path is different from ours. I'm afraid we won't have the chance to meet again in the future." "Yes, Elder Sect Master." When the two heard this they were quite sad. They got up and looked at Nuo Yeqing. Nuo Yeqing's face was filled with ecstasy as she called out, "Master Martial Uncle, you two have already become Senior's disciples? Hee, you silly child." Lu Qingyu's face was filled with sadness as he scolded, "Senior is not a simple Dao Gate cultivator. He is the Elder Sect Master of the Fortune Gate. How can I become his disciple? Senior's personal disciple accepted me and your martial uncle Yue Hua." Lu Qingyu and Yu Hua had already learned everything about Xiao Hua and the Fortune Gate on the Xinhua mainland. They had long been proud of being able to enter the Fortune Gate. Of course, without Xiao Hua's permission, they didn't dare to say anything to Nuo Yeqing when they saw that Xiao Hua was still transforming. While Lu Qingyu was scolding Nuo Yeqing, Yue Hua stole a glance at Xiao Hua's expression and said, "Yeqing, martial uncle has also watched you grow up and likes you very much. Your master didn't say anything else to martial uncle, but I already know that you are determined to come to the Wuming Mountain Range. Although I don't know what secrets you have, martial uncle really wants to tell you that the Fortune Gate is far from being comparable to my Chanha sect, nor is it comparable to the fallen immortal sect. In fact, Martial Uncle feels that even the Chu-Pu Immortal Union is inferior to the Fortune Gate. Not just the Chu-Pu Immortal Union. I feel that the entire Dao Union is inferior to the Fortune Gate. Lu Qingyu couldn't help but interrupt. Little bastard, it's not too late to change your mind. Elder Sect Master won't care about this. How could Nuo Yeqing not understand the anxiety in Lu Qingyu's heart when she heard her master scold her as a little bastard? She smiled faintly and looked at Lu Qingyu, then at Yue Hua and finally at Xiao Hua, saying, "Fellow masters, all of you are this junior's most intimate and most trusted people. Today, this junior will reveal the secret that has been hidden in my heart for hundreds of years. Let me say this first, fellow masters must keep this secret for this junior, and you must not tell anyone else." What do I want to tell others? Lu Qingyu really wanted to grab Nuo Yeqing's ear and drag her to kowtow and enter the Fortune Gate. He couldn't help but scold, "After we part today, we won't have a chance to meet again. Even if I tell you, who will know who you are?" Yeqing. Xiao Hua also felt uncomfortable and said in a low voice, "This is your own secret, you don't have to tell us. What we did for you is what we should do. You don't have to be burdened." "Senior." Nuo Yeqing replied, "You can think like that, but this junior can't do so. Master has taught this junior since I was young, and now that we part, there is a possibility of life and death. How can this junior not tell the secret? Moreover, if this junior doesn't say it, Master will miss me for the rest of my life." Umph. Lu Qingyu coldly snorted. Even though he was about to cry, he still scolded, "I won't miss you. If that's the case, then say it." Xiao Hua said indifferently, "This old man is also very curious. Why did you insist on coming to the Wuming Mountain Range?" "Senior." Nuo Yeqing cleared her throat and asked, "Do you believe in reincarnation?" "Reincarnation?" Xiao Hua asked curiously, "Why are you asking this?" "Senior, don't ask this, first tell me, do you believe in it?" Nuo Yeqing smiled. "I don't believe." Lu Qingyu rushed to answer first, "That's all a lie, how can you believe it?" "Ehe, this old man believes." Xiao Hua glanced at Lu Qingyu and said, "Qingyu, your cultivation is still shallow. In the future, you will understand that there is not only my Dao Gate in this world, there are many other cultivation paths. My Fortune Gate's fourth master may have the ability to interfere with reincarnation." Lu Qingyu opened his mouth, but he was too shocked to say anything. "It's good that Senior believes it." Nuo Yeqing was also a little surprised, but she continued, "If this junior says that this junior reincarnated with the memories of my previous life, will Senior believe it?" Dog. Lu Qingyu obviously wanted to scold Nuo Yeqing, but he only dared to say one word because Xiao Hua had already said, "I believe." This old man has encountered such a thing before, although this old man has not confirmed it, but if you reincarnated with the memories of your previous life, this old man can also accept it. Nuo Yeqing smiled and said, "If that's the case, then it's easy to handle. Senior, please look at the Wuming Mountain Range in front of us. On the other side of the Wuming Mountain Range is a place called Million Mountain Range. This junior was born in Million Mountain Range in my previous life, and was a so-called soul cultivator in Million Mountain Range. Moreover, this junior was also a master refiner in Million Mountain Range. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, gift it, and... Chapter 5009. At this point, Xiao Hua's body trembled, and a strange expression appeared on his face. He stared at Nuo Yeqing with incredulous eyes, and a strong premonition arose from the bottom of his heart. Xiao Hua suppressed the strong impulse in his heart, and listened to Nuo Yeqing continue. "But, perhaps it was because this junior had sacrificed too much to the soul beast in my past life, but in the end, this junior encountered a disaster and was killed by a six-eared macaque. Fortunately, I was kind to the millions of people of the Great God in Meng Mountain. The Great God Hoodoo gave me a gift and let me die on the night of the Great God Hoodoo's sacrifice, a night with a red moon in the sky. Alas, this child." Lu Qingyu had no strength to scold him. He still didn't believe Nuo Yeqing's words. Xiao Hua took a deep breath and said, "Yeqing, so you were Master Qin Qin in your previous life?" This time, it was Nuo Yeqing's turn to be shocked. His body shook violently, and he looked at Xiao Hua with his eyes wide open. He cried out in surprise, "Senior, how did you know?" "Oh, who are you? Could it be? Of course I am me." Tears appeared in Xiao Hua's eyes. They were tears of joy. An indescribable ecstasy overflowed from the bottom of his heart like water. Once again Xiao Hua felt the great love of the heavenly Tao. He couldn't help but be moved by the miraculous fate between heaven and earth. As Xiaohua's voice fell, Xiaohua returned to his original appearance. Jinren Xiao? You are really Xiaohua Jinren Xiao? When Nuo Yeqing heard Xiaohua mention his name in his previous life, he also had a strong premonition in his heart. But when Xiaohua's face was revealed, he still couldn't help but cry out like Xiaohua. Yes, time flies, the autumn moon vicissitudes, you and I meet again. Xiaohua couldn't help but sigh. Nuo Yeqing bit his lips, nodded fiercely and said, I should have thought of it long ago. In this world, if there is a person like you who cares about the world, doesn't care about the boundary between the Heaven Alliance and the Tao Alliance, and respects the choice of others, who else can it be but Jinren Xiao? Whether it is Jinren Zhang or Jinren Li, they are both Jinren Xiao. Then Nuo Yeqing continued in a self-deprecating manner, of course I should have known that Senior was Taoist Xiao from the bloodline soul technique in the spiritual root selection method. It's just that reincarnation is only an instant. Junior was born in the Yilin continent for only a few hundred years. Junior has forgotten the moment of reincarnation. Tens of thousands of years have passed between the Yilin continent and the Xiaoyu continent. It's normal that Senior is able to cultivate to the peak of the human world. Therefore, I have never dared to believe that an expert like you is Taoist Master Xiao. Although Yuehua and Lu Qingyu were already Fortune Gate's disciples and knew about the Fortune Gate's development and Xiaohua's experiences, they still didn't know about Xiaohua's fortuitous encounter. Therefore they took Nuo Yeqing's words to be true. Lu Qingyu looked at Nuo Yeqing from head to toe and said worriedly, Yeqing then, how should I address you in the future? Master, the previous life is the previous life and this life is this life. You are naturally this junior's master. Nuo Yeqing smiled and said, the current Million Ming Mountains is still different from the Million Ming Mountains from several tens of thousands of years ago. Everything from the previous life has turned into smoke. That's good? Lu Qingyu nodded, but a moment later he said sadly, that's not good. Although I know about your background in the blink of an eye, we have to separate again. Yes, Master, after all, the Million Ming Mountains is this disciple's home. Disciple has left the Million Ming Mountains for a lifetime. Disciple wants to go back and take a look. Nuo Yeqing was a little hesitant. Looking at the gray sky in the distance, her eyes were blurred with homesickness. Xiaohua stroked his chin and looked at Nuo Yeqing thoughtfully. The corner of his mouth curved into a smile as he said, Yeqing, I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed. Nuo Yeqing was stunned. Retracting her gaze, she looked at Xiaohua in confusion and asked, Senior, what do you mean? What is there for this junior to be disappointed about? Although time has passed quickly, the shadow of time is still lingering on the Wuming Mountains. Xiaohua said, if I'm not wrong, you've been blessed by the great god Hutu, and reincarnated during the blood moon. Although you were born in different places, your previous life and this life were only separated by the night of sacrifice. You've lived for hundreds of years in the Yilin continent, and hundreds of years in the Million Ming Mountains. If Ziming sees you, he'll definitely be very happy. Nuo Yeqing was stunned. After a while, as if she had just woken up from a dream, she said, Say, Senior, if this junior was reincarnated during the night of sacrifice, this junior can understand. After all, to keep the memories of the previous life, I can't stay in the arms of the great god Hutu for a long time. But Senior's cultivation base, how could it soar from the Taoist Yuanying level to the supreme of the human race in just a few hundred years? This is too inconceivable. After Nuo Yeqing finished speaking, Yu Hua and Lu Yi's bodies also shook greatly. They looked at Xiaohua in horror and only had one thought in their hearts. Damn it, if all the cultivators in the world were to add up their years, they would have lived like dogs. Actually, Xiaohua didn't want to talk about how his cultivation base soared, but in front of Nuo Yeqing, who used to be Master Qin Qin, Xiaohua didn't have any reason to hide it. So he said with a smile, you've been blessed by the great god Hutu, and you can reincarnate with your memories. In the past few hundred years, your cultivation base has far surpassed that of other cultivators. Why can't I have other opportunities? Nuo Yeqing sighed and said, Senior, if I tell you about my opportunities, my master and martial uncle will believe it, right? But Senior's opportunities? I'm afraid they won't believe it even if they're beaten to death, right? Yes. Yuehua and Lu Qingyu nodded like chickens pecking at rice and responded numbly. In front of these two geniuses they had nothing to say. If I tell you about my opportunities, you'll naturally understand, but this opportunity is too dangerous, so I can't disclose it. Xiaohua said with a smile, Anyway, you should believe that there is no shortcut to cultivation in this world. I also cultivated, for hundreds of thousands of years to reach my current cultivation base. Oh, no wonder. Nuo Yeqing nodded. She knew that this was Xiaohua's secret, so she didn't ask any more. Xiaohua turned his head to look at Lu Qingyu and Yuehua, and said in a somewhat stern tone, Yeqing has lived 2 lives and has experienced a lot. I can tell her this without worry, but your Dao heart is still shallow, so I'm not at ease. You must remember this. Yuehua and Lu Qingyu's hearts trembled, and they hurriedly bowed and said, Junior understands, please rest assured, Sect Master. Senior. Nuo Yeqing said with a smile, my master is very lazy. He likes to take shortcuts, but he won't be able to go far in this life. Martial Uncle Yu, on the other hand, will be much stronger than my master in the future. You just need to train Martial Uncle Yu more. You little brat. Lu Qingyu glared at Nuo Yeqing and scolded with a smile, is there a disciple like you? You don't say good things about your master in front of Sect Master. Lazy? Xiaohua's heart moved and he immediately thought of his master Xiao Hongyue. If the word lazy was used, Lu Qingyu was exactly the same as Xiao Hongyue. Is it possible that this Lu Qingyu is master's reincarnation? Damn it, this is big trouble. Xiaohua wanted to let Nanwu Methreya perform his magical power, but after thinking for a while, he realized that Lu Qingyu was different from Nuo Yeqing. He didn't have the memory of his previous life. He had just made it clear that the previous life was the previous life, and this life was this life. He mustn't use his magical power to mix things up, otherwise karma would be entangled. So Xiaohua suppressed this thought, looked at Nuo Yeqing and said, Yeqing, back then you gave me your refining inheritance and the token of your sect, and asked me to find a successor for you. It seems that there is fate in the unseen world. A few 100 years is not enough for me to find a successor for you. So these things, I'll return them to you. You can consider them as returning the jade to its rightful owner. After saying that, Xiaohua's Kunlun mirror shook again, and the soul nest that Master and I Qin had given him appeared in his hand. Xiaohua glanced at it. There were many bones, soul tools, refining methods, jade slips and sword slips inside. Even Master and I Qin's token was inside. Xiaohua solemnly handed it to Nuo Yeqing. Nuo Yeqing didn't immediately take it. Instead, he looked at it with tears in his eyes. This was what his previous life entrusted to him, and today fate had passed on to him. He had mixed feelings and he didn't know whether to thank Xiaohua for keeping his promise or to thank Hooded God for the gift. Take it, it's yours. Yuehua sighed in her heart and said in a low voice. Thank you, Master Xiao. Nuo Yeqing nodded slightly at Moonlight, took the soul nest and said to Xiaohua, I really didn't expect that there would be a day like this. There are many things you didn't expect. Xiaohua said with a smile, do you want to know what happened to the 6-eared macaque that attacked you that day? I'm a little curious, but when I asked Senior to let me go that day, I already had my own decision. Nuo Yeqing was already indifferent to the hatred of his previous life. He said lightly, I think it's because I sacrificed too many soul tools and killed too many soul beasts. That's why. I don't want Senior's hands to be stained with blood again. I'm actually very curious. Xiaohua smiled and was about to ask, but when he saw Lu Qingyu and Moonlight here, he knew it wasn't appropriate for them to know too much. He changed his mind and said, by the way, Yeqing, I can't find you a disciple, but I can find you a master to teach you the soul cultivation inheritance of millions of Meng mountains? This. Nuo Yeqing hesitated and whispered, Senior, although my sect is different from the Dao sect, but what? Little brat. Lu Qingyu scolded in a low voice. Don't worry. Xiaohua smiled and said, it's not too late to make a decision after you see the master I found for you. As he spoke, Xiaohua activated the Kunlun mirror and invited Daoist Witch out. P.S. Fellow Daoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and... Chapter 50:10. As soon as Daoist Witch appeared, an aura comparable to that of a soul cultivator's emanated from his body. Not only was Daoist Witch's 3 corpses in lightning very familiar to Nuo Yeqing, but the terrifying crown on Daoist Witch's head made Nuo Yeqing feel an inexplicable sense of worship. Even though Daoist Witch's eyes were black and white, Nuo Yeqing felt as if all of her secrets had been seen through by him. His eyes were filled with soul strands and green seal text. Why did you call me? Daoist Witch usually didn't reveal this kind of aura, but now he asked in a serious manner. He eyes greetings? Xiaohua said with a smile. This is the reincarnation of Master Qin Qin that this poor Daoist mentioned to fellow Daoist before. He has the memories of his previous life, and this poor Daoist sees that he is a good seedling for cultivation, so I would like to ask fellow Daoist to accept him as a disciple. Daoist Which looked at Nuo Yeqing from head to toe and shook his head slightly. Although this child has the memories of his previous life, his place of reincarnation is not the Wuming Mountain range, so he can't really cultivate soul techniques from a young age. Moreover, I see that his soul cultivation realm has also gone astray. Some soul cultivator strength is not the authentic nine heaven spirit origin realm. He. Xiao Hua knew that this was Taoist witch's idea, so he smiled and said, "In any case, Master Go Qin is destined to be with us. He was not born in the Meng Mountain range, which is naturally a test from the hooded god. He was waiting for our arrival here. Moreover, the heavenly Tao is fair and this is also a kind of test for him. Please consider it." Seeing that Taoist which was still thinking, Xiao Hua said to Nua Yeqing, Lu Qingyu and Yue Hua, "This is our Fortune Gate 6th Master, Taoist witch. You have never seen him before. Greetings, 6th Old Master." Lu Qingyu and Yue Hua had naturally heard of Taoist witch's name before. They immediately knelt down and kowtowed when they saw the 6th Old Master, whom everyone had only heard of but never seen before, standing in front of them. Nua Yeqing saw Taoist witch's powerful sorcerer aura. How could she not know when to retreat? Without any hesitation, he hurriedly knelt down and kowtowed as he said, "Senior, Junior Nua Yeqing kowtows and salute to Senior. Since the day I was reincarnated, I've been thinking about the legacy of Soul Cultivator day and night, constantly wishing to return to Mount Meng. However, I was too young and weak to travel long distances. After I joined the Tao sect, I knew how dangerous the journey to the Wuming Mountain range was. I didn't dare to take the risk with my weak body. Therefore, I secretly cultivated the art of duo cultivation in the Tao sect. Furthermore, this junior is also aware of my own shortcomings. I do not dare to rashly cultivate in profound soul techniques, only solidifying my foundation. It is this junior's fortune to be able to meet Senior today, and it is also thanks to great God Hoodoo's guidance. This junior earnestly requests Senior to accept this junior as your disciple. This junior does not dare to say that this junior will be the greatest disciple of the Fortune Gate, but this junior dares to say that this junior will not sully Senior's name, and will not cause the destruction of my soul cultivation heritage." Xiao Hua looked at Taoist Wu's hesitation. He also knew that Taoist Wu had some Tao teachings on the Xinhua continent. After all, the people born on the Xinhua continent were far more talented than the ordinary cultivators on the Yilan continent. In the eyes of ordinary people, Nua Yeqing was not simple, but in the eyes of Taoist Wu she was nothing. However, he could not underestimate Master Ni Qin's karma, and Nua Yeqing was not born on the Yilan continent for no reason. Therefore Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Taoist Wu, you and I are both mortals. We all understand that talent is important, but the most important thing is the heart towards the Tao, and also the opportunity. Nua Yeqing lacks neither of these, so I feel that he will have a great fortune in the future." Taoist Wu nodded and said, "Taoist Wu is right. Talent and opportunity are innate, and the heart towards the Tao comes later. If Nua Yeqing knows shame, then he can be trained." Nua Yeqing was overjoyed and hurriedly kowtowed and said, "Disciple Nua Yeqing greets Master." After Nua Yeqing kowtowed 9 times, Taoist Wu smiled and said, "That's it for today. This old man will accept you as my disciple. In the future, if there is an opportunity, we will conduct the ceremony of apprenticeship ceremony. You may rise." "Thank you, Master." Nua Yeqing stood up respectfully, and her emotions were surging like waves. He was very clear that even though he had cultivated for his entire life in his previous life, his soul cultivation strength was probably not 1 in 10,000 compared to this 6th Master of the Fortune Gate. Moreover, although he had never seen the Shaman King of the Meng Mountains, he could feel an indescribable aura from Taoist Wu. He firmly believed that this Taoist Wu was definitely not inferior to the Shaman King. "And this old man will go back to cultivate first. You can settle your karma with Taoist Xiao." Taoist Wu nodded and instructed. "This disciple respectfully sends off Master." Nua Yeqing hurriedly bowed. The Kunlun mirror in Xiao Hua's hand vibrated, and after Taoist Wu entered the space, Lu Qingyu and Yu Hua were overjoyed and congratulated Nua Yeqing. Lu Qingyu even shouted, "That's not right, 6th Master of the Fortune Gate has accepted Yeqing as his disciple. Wouldn't this disciple be a generation younger than him?" Yu Hua glared at him and said, "Yeqing has lived a lifetime longer than you. Senior sister, little brother didn't come out of this life for nothing." Lu Qingyu shrunk his neck and said with grievance, "Who doesn't have this life and the afterlife? You all are gathered in the same sect, why not?" Xiao Hua smiled and said, "The status of master and disciple is just a title, it represents the past, but it doesn't necessarily represent the future. Whether he calls you master or not, you are still alive and standing in front of him. is better than not seeing him at all, right? Yes, First Master of the Fortune Gate is right, Yu Hua said with a smile. Although she understood that the dream in her heart was just a dream, she was already satisfied to be able to see that tall figure standing in the distance like a mountain. Lu Qingyu hurriedly smiled and said, "This disciple was just saying, First Master of the Fortune Gate, please don't take it to heart. And I originally wanted you all to say goodbye to Yeqing." Xiao Hua said with a smile, "Since there's no need to say goodbye, you all can go back first. However, you all have to remember that only a few of us know about Yeqing's matter, don't let others know." Yes, this disciple understands the pros and cons. Lu Qingyu and Yu Hua's expressions turned cold. After bowing, they were also sent back to Xinhua continent by Xiao Hua. All right. Xiao Hua clapped his hands and put away the Kunlun mirror. He took out 2 praying mats and threw them on the ground. He casually sat down and pointed to the other praying mat and said, "You also sit. Today this old man will ask you about your past. From now on this old man will not ask any more." Yes, First Master of the Fortune Gate. Nuo Yeqing was also well-mannered. Although she casually sat down, she still spoke respectfully. Xiao Hua actually didn't care about this. After Nuo Yeqing sat down, he said, "This Xiao is actually very curious about what happened in the valley that day. Master and I Qin seems to have already known about her death. Sai, this junior has always wanted to let go of this matter, but from time to time, it would always surface in my mind. I think I have to explain it to senior today." Nuo Yeqing couldn't help but sigh and explain, "Actually in the end, this matter was brought up by senior." Xiao Hua didn't say anything and just quietly listened to Nuo Yeqing's explanation. "I remember that day when senior and the others came to the valley with Ziming. Ziming took out the soul lamp and asked Master and I Qin to repair it. Master and I Qin repaired the soul tool for the 3rd time, and after the repair she was going to return to the embrace of great god Hutu. But suddenly, Ziming took out the rejuvenation pill concocted by senior, and Master and I Qin was very happy. Then, when she heard that senior was Daoist Xiao, Master and I Qin was even more ecstatic. She went forward and thanked senior, thanking senior for saving millions of people of Meng Mountain from danger." Nuo Yeqing explained calmly. The Master and I Qin he mentioned was naturally his previous life, but he didn't mention himself, but Master and I Qin. Obviously he wanted to separate the identities of the 2 lives. But when Master and I Qin raised her head, she actually saw a river of stars in senior's eyes. What was even stranger was that at that moment, Master and I Qin was trapped in it, as if she was experiencing it herself. She saw her own death. Later on, this junior kept thinking about why this happened. After thinking for a long time, I finally understood. Perhaps senior was cultivating some kind of Taoist magic, and Ziming's words touched senior, causing senior to enter a kind of epiphany, which allowed Master and I Qin to peek into the secrets of heaven in advance. As expected. Xiao Hua nodded sadly. Master and I Qin was the same as Xue Xue. Both of them saw their own karma in the river of karma when he was cultivating the hand of karma. Later on, Master and I Qin couldn't sleep at night, thinking about how to avoid it. But in the end, Master and I Qin understood that this might be a kind of fate, the consequence of staining her hands with too much blood of soul beasts. Nuo Yeqing continued to explain, "So, Master and I Qin let go of the knot in her heart and passed down the legacy of crafting to the first elder. She also told the first elder that there was no need to avenge her. Of course, Master and I Qin knew that she didn't have much time left, so she didn't want to waste the precious rejuvenation pill. However, humans are humans after all. It is inevitable that Master and I Qin would become weak at the moment of death. After sending the first elder and the others away, Master and I Qin also wanted to save herself, so she urged the disciples in the valley to pack up and prepare to escape." Nuo Yeqing continued, "But when she escaped to the reception stage, death finally came." At this point, Nuo Yeqing hesitated. She didn't want to mention the 6-eared macaque, but when she thought about how she had already mentioned it without knowing Xiao Hua, she simply continued, "The 6-eared macaque came over, and Master and I Qin only saw the true appearance of the murderer before she fainted. Of course, Master and I Qin woke up for a moment and wanted to write about the 6-eared macaque, but she only wrote 1 word before she passed away. Oh senior, just now you said that you met someone who also had the memories of his previous life. Was it Master and I Qin? How do you know what happened after that? P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it and give it a tip." Chapter 50:11. Of course it's Master and I Qin. Xiao Hua smiled. After I left with Ziming, I encountered the Hutu great god sacrificial night. Thinking of all the strange things about Master and I Chin, we immediately returned and saw the tragedy in the valley. Unfortunately, we only saw the word 6 and didn't know who the murderer was. Zimming thought it was little 6. Of course, karma is strange. Later on, I met Six-Eared Macaque and took him away from Xiaoyu continent. I also found out that he was the murderer of Master and I Chin. That day, I wanted to kill him, but I remembered Master and I Chin's instructions and didn't do it. Who would have thought that so many things would happen? Hearing that Xiaohua didn't kill Six-Eared Macaque with his own hands, Nuo Yeching smiled slightly. However, when Xiaohua told him about the unimportant things in the Book of Sutras of Nirvana, he sighed again. Finally, after Xiaohua finished, Nuo Yeching stood up and looked at the setting sun. He took a deep breath and said, "Today's sun will eventually set and tomorrow's sun will definitely rise. Tomorrow's sun will definitely not be today's sun. Senior, please promise me that Master and I Chin already lives in the hearts of millions of people in Ming Mountains. I am Nuo Yeching now, so please don't tell this secret to anyone else, including Zimming." Xiaohua stood up and looked at Nuo Yeching meaningfully. "What you said is actually what I'm thinking. If you're willing, I can also erase your memories, Lu Qingyu's and Yuehua's memories. Haha, Senior is so resourceful that I admire you." Nuo Yeching smiled. "However, you don't have to do that. If you can't let it go, even if you erase it, you might be able to remember it at any time. No method can compare to letting it go. Not bad, not bad." Nuo Yeching's words reminded Xiaohua of the water of oblivion. He clapped his hands and said, "With this heart, your cultivation will definitely reach great heights in this life. I don't dare to have extravagant hopes." Nuo Yeching said respectfully. "I only know that I will take every step steadily." "Good." Xiaohua nodded. "If that's the case, there's no need for you to return to Ming Mountains. Just cultivate in Shenhua continent." "Yes, I understand." Nuo Yeching replied, "The sixth elder of the sect master's knowledge is as vast as the sea. To be able to listen to his teachings, this junior is already satisfied with this life. It doesn't matter if I return to Mount Meng or not." Done. Xiaohua let out a long sigh and rubbed his palms together. Another karma has been resolved. This old man's heart has become even more relaxed. "Thank you, elder." After Nuo Yeching bowed to express her gratitude, Xiaohua sent her into the Shenhua continent. However, Xiaohua wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he stood there with his arms crossed as he looked at the setting sun. He had an indescribable feeling in his heart as the karmic hand in the space rapidly expanded once again. Seeing that the night was about to pass and the morning star was about to light up, Xiaohua revealed a smile. He raised his hand and waved it. At the place where his finger touched, a spatial crack appeared. Just as Xiaohua's figure flashed, he saw from the corner of his eyes that in the northern part of the sky that was already somewhat dark, a rainbow-colored radiance flew across the sky. It was precisely flying towards the eastern part of the dark night. That rainbow-colored radiance appeared very dazzling in the dusk. Xiaohua's figure stopped as he subconsciously looked towards the glow. This glow was clearly different from the usual glow seen in the Yilin continent. It carried a kind of indescribable holiness, and this holiness was different from the Buddha's light. Xiaohua immediately had an indescribable feeling when he saw it. Xiaohua had just looked at the radiance, but before he could see clearly who was in front of the radiance, a clear light similar to the clear sight technique of a Confucian cultivator crossed the space and landed on Xiaohua's body. "Oh!" Xiaohua was a little surprised and secretly exclaimed, "This? What kind of technique is this? Could it be that on the Yilin continent, other than Long Shenxi and Old Man Guqiong, there are other more powerful Taoist experts? A Golden Core 9th Refinement Stage expert from Shen Alliance? That's not right. This Dharma body doesn't seem to be a Taoist cultivator." As Xiaohua pondered, the seven-colored radiance in the sky changed direction and flew towards Xiaohua. When it flew closer, Xiaohua could clearly see that it was a beautiful woman with a serene expression. This woman's face was round like a full moon, a pair of pitch-black eyes flashed with coldness. Her small cherry lips seemed to be a little captivating red. She had a straight, jade-like nose and crescent moon-like black eyebrows. A kind of indescribable calmness spontaneously arose. On her originally sculpted face, there was a red mole the size of a rice grain on the left side of her eyebrows. This was originally a flaw, but it gave the woman a kind of charm. That charm was faint, and not only did it make people not dare to blaspheme her, but it also made people who saw the woman's cold eyes feel a trace of warmth. The woman was dressed in a white robe that flashed with a faint luster. Her long beautiful hair was like a waterfall that draped over her back, and the curls were the ripples of the water. The woman flew in the air, and there were no fluctuations of mana around her. Instead, there was a layer of extremely dim, holy white light that protected the woman. This white light was like a protective brilliance and was extremely tenacious. However, it still couldn't block Xiaohua's gaze. Xiaohua could already see that the woman's body was transparent, as if it was made of crystal. Even though the woman's hands were as soft as a flower and she was lightly pinching in front of him, Xiaohua could clearly see that there were several layers of light feathers stacked together on the woman's back. An indescribable light was flowing between the light feathers. Angel? Xiaohua's heart gave birth to an inexplicable feeling and he secretly cried out, "This? What's going on? When did the Yilin continent become so chaotic? What Yao clan, what Devil clan, what Angel clan all appeared at once? Who are you?" The woman flew closer and stood there elegantly. Her pair of beautiful eyes looked at Xiaohua, and her eyebrows slightly furrowed, as if she was vexed because she couldn't see through Xiaohua. That clear and melodious voice, like a lark, sounded in Xiaohua's ears. "This one is Xiaohua of the Taoist sect, and my Buddhist name is Taoist Master Xiao." Xiaohua slightly smiled and cupped his hands in greeting. "How should I address you, fellow Taoist?" The woman coldly replied, "My Tao is not your Tao. People of different Tao cannot make plans together. You don't have to address me as fellow Taoist, my name is Jianghu." Immediately after, the woman's eyebrows furrowed and she seemed to ponder for a moment, then shook her head and said, "Your name is Xiaohua? How come I've never heard of your name before? With your cultivation, I should know, right?" Xiaohua heard this angel called Jianghu, one moment, "I," the next "I," and the next moment, "I," clearly not from the Yilin continent. Thus Xiaohua slightly smiled and said, "Jianghu, you are not a cultivator of my Taoist sect, how could you know this one's name? This one asks you, what kind of angel are you from the Holy Light Realm?" Hearing this, Jianghu's originally ice-cold face suddenly showed astonishment. Her small cherry mouth slightly opened and she cried out, "You? How could you tell?" Following Jianghu's voice, a buzzing sound came from her body, and the white robe draped around her suddenly turned into a pure and holy light screen. As the light screen soared into the sky, a seven-colored halo suddenly appeared on Jianghu's back. The halo was like a blooming flower, and a pair of 10-long wings slowly spread out. At this moment, the wings were already clear and there were actually 7 layers. Between each layer, a dense and pure aura leaked out. Moreover, as the 7 layers of wings flapped, all the pure and holy light condensed into a huge scepter. Woo-woo. A strange chanting sound came out of nowhere, and it enveloped the surrounding several hundred li. On top of the scepter, there was a strange solemnity, and a kind of omnipresent authority. Like a Taoist sect's restriction, it imprisoned Xiaohua in layers. The entire space was filled with a kind of milky white, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was blocked by this milky white color. At the same time, Jianghu's handsome appearance began to blur, and a kind of transparency gradually covered that kind of beauty. What was special was that Jianghu's pair of eyes gradually lost the emotions of a human, and a milky white dot of light shone from within. In just a moment, it had already rushed out, and Jianghu lightly reprimanded, "Evil creature, why are you still not showing your true form?" 2 pigeon-like figures rushed out of her eyes, and flapped their wings as they charged towards Xiaohua. "Hee." Xiaohua lightly smiled and raised his hand and said, "On my Yilin continent, among all the living beings, you actually dare to call this old man an evil creature? If this old man is an evil creature, then what are you?" Where Xiaohua's finger landed, the space let out a kacha. Crisp sound, and it was like glass shattering. The space that was enveloped by the pure and holy light and the scepter's authority instantly shattered. The ceiling aura from before also shattered into pieces. What was special was that these cracks spread out extremely quickly, and before Jianghu could react, they had already surrounded him. Jianghu was shocked. His transparent face, and his peerlessly beautiful appearance appeared once again. His beautiful eyebrows were slightly furrowed, and it really made one's heart ache. Following Jianghu's exclamation, the shattered fragments of the scepter fell into the 7 layers of light feathers. As the light feathers spread out once again, woo-woo, sobbing sounds suddenly rang out, and the scepter turned into 7 milky white droplets. They were like tears, and those tears were filled with compassion, destruction, and supreme will. Within 1,000 miles, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth instantly turned into nothingness. What kind of technique is this? Xiaohua was shocked because he already had a body of laws. Wherever his gaze landed, he could see the laws of all things. And when his gaze landed on the 7 tiers, other than the torrential bitter water, he also saw men and women in strange clothes howling in grief. Battles that left corpses lying in 1,000 miles erupted under the bitter water, and a kind of power that could destroy heaven and earth was brewing in this bitter water. This power might not be comparable to Su Ji's or Fairy Xing Yu's, but if it were to land on the Yilan continent, even Xiao Hua, a supreme cultivator who had already reached the 10th grade of elemental energy, might not be able to withstand it. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark and reward. Thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 50:12. However, before Xiao Hua could be surprised, there was a ka-cha-cha. In the sky, an invisible sound of thunder was heard, and the restriction of heaven and earth fell from the sky. Before Zhang Jie's 7 tears could escape from her light feather, it immediately turned into fragments, and all kinds of misery and mercy were also shattered. A look of regret appeared on Zhang Jie's surprised face. However, before she could retract her light feathers and activate her divine ability again, a look of realization appeared on her pure and holy face. Because at the same time that the 7 tears shattered, the power of Xiao Hua's finger, the spatial crack that could kill all things in space, suddenly stopped in front of Zhang Jie's 7 light feathers. It didn't hurt the light at all. Xiao Hua clearly did not have the intention to kill Zhang Jie. Since she understood Xiao Hua's meaning, Zhang Jie did not use the holy light again, and Xiao Hua did not use the sword gourd that had already touched Zhang Jie's mind. However, Xiao Hua still looked at Zhang Jie with some caution, because he understood that Zhang Jie was definitely not as cute and harmless as he thought. Her strength might surpass his, and if not for the restriction of the laws of heaven and earth on the Yilan continent, he might not be her opponent. As the two waited for a moment, the spatial crack gradually disappeared, and the light around Zhang Jie's body faded. Zhang Jie crossed her arms to protect her chest, and the light feather that had been retracted trembled slightly, like the wings of a frightened dove. You're actually so powerful?" Zhang Jie looked at Xiao Hua in disbelief and said in surprise, "You have such strength, why are you still in the human world?" Xiao Hua did not understand the Holy Light Realm and the angels of the Holy Light Realm. Zhang Jie was the first angel he had seen. He had only heard some secrets from the Mahavairākana Buddha, but he knew from the tone of the Mahavairākana Buddha that although the Buddhist kingdom and the Holy Light Realm were enemies, the Mahavairākana Buddha still held the angels in high esteem. Therefore he still had the most initial good impression of the angels, and this so-called Zhang Jie because Xiao Hua knew that whether it was the Buddhist sect or the angels, they all had their own beliefs and their own bottom line. And Xiao Hua also believed that regardless of the bottom line, as long as it was a cultivator with a bottom line, they should be respected, regardless of whether the other party was a friend or an enemy. In particular, when Zhang Jie saw that his strength was restricted by the Yilin continent, and when he saw Xiao Hua's goodwill, he immediately stopped. Clearly he was the kind of cultivator who did not want to provoke others. Therefore, when facing Zhang Jie, Xiao Hua felt as if he was facing a bodhisattva of the Buddhist sect. Holding the most basic and kind attitude, he rubbed his nose and smiled. "Zhang Jie, shouldn't this old man be the one asking you this question? Why aren't you staying in the sacred light realm? Why have you come to my Tao sect's Yilin continent?" This. Angels were not good at lying. Faced with this mysterious human cultivator who seemed to be no weaker than her, Zhang Jie was a little hesitant. She did not dare to reveal her origins for fear of bringing trouble to the Holy Light Realm. However, she could not speak blindly either. For a moment she was a little embarrassed. The more Zhang Jie acted like this, the more Xiao Hua smiled in his heart and waved his hand. "Since that's the case, it's fine if you don't say it. This old man has the Buddha fruit from the Buddhist sect. Moreover, this old man's good friend is also a disciple of the Buddhist sect. If you tell this old man about his past, this old man will also be burdened. It's better not to say it." When Zhang Jie heard this, she could not help but turn pale with fright. In a flash she actually flew back more than 10 li. "It can't be." Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. "This old man knows that the Buddhist kingdom and the sacred light realm are enemies. If this old man wanted to make a move, I would not have stopped just now. Since this old man is open and honest, I have no intention of making a move against you." When Zhang Jie heard this, her face turned red again. The light wings on her back fluttered and she quietly flew back a few li. Then she let out a long sigh of relief and said, "Thank you, Taoist Xiao." However, it was only for a moment. Zhang Jie raised her head again and asked curiously, "Taoist Xiao, how did you get the Buddha fruit from the Buddhist sect?" Why can't I see the Buddha light and light from Taoist Xiao? What's the cultivation of your good friend? Sweat. Xiaohua did not know whether to laugh or cry. He secretly said, "It's said that female cultivators have a gossipy heart. It seems that this angel is the same." Xiaohua naturally wouldn't say it out loud. He only smiled and said, "I was originally a disciple of Tao sect, but Buddhist sect insisted on giving me a Buddha fruit just because I did some good deeds to the world. It was so nondescript that of course you couldn't see it. As for my good friend's cultivation, I don't know." Speaking of this, Xiaohua asked curiously, "By the way, where are you going?" Zhang Jie's face turned red again. He did not immediately answer. Obviously he did not want to lie. "Haha, I won't ask any more." Xiaohua laughed. He raised his finger and drew a line in the void. A space crack appeared, and Xiaohua's figure flashed and floated into it. Then he turned back and said, "This is the Yilan continent. There are many cultivators of the Tao sect, and you are an angel of the holy light realm. In their eyes you are a vile creature. Although this old man will not make a move against you, I can't guarantee that old man Gu Qiong, Taoist Ji Yen, Bright Moon householder, and the others will not make a move against you. You must be careful. Oh, if you meet them and you don't want to kill them and you can't escape, you can mention my name. Maybe they will know what to do." After saying this, Xiaohua's figure fell into the void and disappeared. Zhang Jie flapped his wings and flew to the void. With a flap of his wings, countless holy light swords rushed into the void, and the void was torn apart again. Then Zhang Jie's eyes flashed with white light and swept across the void. After a while, Zhang Jie said in a low voice, "What kind of Tao sect's divine ability did Taoist Xiao use? Why can't I see the spatial imprint of his teleportation? Could it be that he really came from the immortal realm?" Zhang Jie stood in midair for a long time. When the holy light dissipated and the moon rose, he raised his head slightly and looked in a direction. He said curiously, "Strange why is he here? Could it be that he still hasn't given up?" After saying this, Zhang Jie flapped his wings again and flew toward the Wuming mountain range in the east, which looked like the outline of a monster. Xiaohua landed on the envoy's flying boat without attracting anyone's attention. Xiaohua sat down cross-legged and put away the dream mirage butterfly. He frowned and said to himself, "Damn it, why is the Yilan continent so chaotic? It is not as pure as my Xiaoyu continent. Even an angel from the holy light realm has appeared." However, when he thought of this, Xiaohua laughed involuntarily. When he left the Xiaoyu continent, he only had the strength of a Yuanying realm cultivator and the things he could see were few. However, even with the strength of a Yuanying realm cultivator, he had seen demons, and even Buddhists. Now that he was already a sovereign of the human race, it wouldn't be a big deal to see another angel, right? His way of thinking was favoring one and discriminating against the other. But this Zhang Jie, what is his purpose in coming to the Yilan continent? Xiaohua's eyes turned slightly. Could it be to find the sacred weapon suppressed by the demon sovereign's corpse? What is the origin of this sacred weapon that is worthy of a seven-winged throne angel coming to the mortal world? However, this seven-winged throne angel is very powerful. Thinking of this, Xiaohua stared blankly and shook his head. No, the holy light realm is a realm on par with the Buddhist kingdom. A seven-winged throne angel is also a divine existence in the holy light realm. How could it only have such strength? If Zhang Jie was really a throne angel, I'm afraid even Su Ji would not be his opponent? How could this Xiao scare him? Or is he injured? Is he unable to activate the holy light? Or is he a one-winged angel of the lowest level? But how could there be 7 layers of light feathers? No matter what, many of his light feathers are blurry. I'm afraid he really is injured. Xiaohua let his imagination run wild for a moment. Suddenly, a voice sounded from the bottom of his heart. "Namo Maitreya Buddha Xiao Tanyue, this seat did not disappoint you. Before leaving the Yilan continent, I finally finished modifying the 9 transformations golden pill cultivation technique." Xiaohua was shocked. He said in disbelief, "Buddha Lord, are you sure? You really finished modifying the 9 transformations golden pill cultivation technique? This is probably the first Taoist cultivation technique that was modified by a Buddha Lord of the Buddhist sect?" Back then, Xiaohua felt that the Taoist sect's 9 transformations golden pill sounded similar to the Buddhist sect's 9 transformations golden body, so he casually threw the cultivation technique to the Maitreya Buddha. However, he really did not expect that the Maitreya Buddha would really finish modifying the 9 transformations golden pill cultivation technique during the few years he was comprehending the origin of water. "This seat will not go out. Tanyue, come in and take a look," the Maitreya Buddha replied with a smile. Xiaohua's mind entered the Xinhua continent and turned into Jade Archive Xiaohua. He saw the Maitreya Buddha sitting cross-legged on the 9-grade lotus platform. In the distance, the thunderbolt immortal had turned into lightning, and a seed of profound meaning was sprouting in his body. Looking at the other side, the celestial had also manifested 3 heads and 6 arms. Pillars of light were spewing out of his mouth like dragons. His originally golden body was now filled with a water-blue luster. I understand. Jade Archive Xiaohua said with a smile. The Maitreya Buddha put his palms together and said, "Let me tell you, fellow Taoist. This 9 transformations golden pill cultivation technique is essentially a Taoist sect's golden pill cultivation technique. However, it can be borrowed from the Buddhist sect's 9 transformations golden body cultivation technique. It is also mixed with the bone tempering technique of the ancient celestial. Therefore, this seat asked the thunderbolt immortal and the celestial to deduce together. It has nothing to do with me." The celestial did not wait for the Maitreya Buddha to finish speaking and shouted, "I was refining the origin of water, and the Buddha Lord forcibly took the bone tempering technique from me? Buddha Lord, you forgot that you also took the demon clan's cultivation technique of Feng Wu." The thunderbolt immortal's voice was like thunder, rumbling in the sky above the Xinhua continent. "Namo Maitreya Buddha, you are right. The Profound Alliance has the 39 golden body cultivation technique, which is derived from the 9 transformations golden pill. There are some traces of the demon clan's cultivation technique, so this seat also borrowed some of the demon clan's cultivation technique." The Maitreya Buddha smiled and raised his hand to hand a few jade slips to Jade Archive Xiaohua. He said, "Tanyue, you can take a look. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, reward, and thank you for all forms of support." Chapter 50:13. In fact, there was no need to take the jade slip. Xiaohua fell into the space, and the knowledge of Buddha Maitreya the World Venerable, and the others had already entered Xiaohua's heart. Xiaohua instantly knew all the cultivation methods and secret techniques. However, Xiaohua still took the jade slip, and his eyes flashed with 9 colors. After reading it, he sighed, "Our Tao sect's inheritance is really a bit messy. First, there was the Tao Venerable who taught us the nascent soul cultivation method, then there was the Tao Ancestor who taught us the primordial spirit cultivation method, and now there is the Tao Master who taught us the 9 transformation golden core cultivation method. The primordial spirit cultivation method seems to be borrowed from Confucianism, and the golden core cultivation method seems to be borrowed from Buddhism. It seems that they are not the real cultivation methods of our Tao sect. Perhaps only the Tao Venerable's nascent soul cultivation method is really passed down from ancient times." Unfortunately, when Xiaohua said this, his body suddenly shook as if he thought of something, and his face unexpectedly showed a shocked expression. Buddha Maitreya and the World Venerable's face showed mercy, but he did not speak. After a long while, Xiaohua said in a low voice, "If I had not seen an angel before, I would have thought that the nascent soul cultivation method was unique to our Tao sect. But today I saw Jianghu. Isn't she completely composed of spiritual bodies? It's just that she is condensed from holy light, and our Tao sect's nascent soul is condensed from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Could it be that our Tao sect doesn't have its own cultivation method?" "Not necessarily." Thunder Immortal shouted disdainfully, "Or maybe Buddhism, Confucianism, Sacred Light Realm, they all borrowed our Tao sect's cultivation method? But if so, why does our Tao sect have Tao Venerable, Tao Ancestor, and Tao Master, 3 ancestors?" Xiaohua asked. "The title of Tao Venerable is similar to the title of World Venerable, the title of Tao Master is similar to the title of Sacred Lord, and the incarnation of Tao Ancestor is the disappeared Confucian sage." "Ah, fellow Taoist." The celestial in the distance laughed heartlessly, "Aren't you thinking too much? This is a secret from ancient times. What does it have to do with us? So what if my Tao sect is a sect that was created using other sects as a reference? Could it be that only Confucians, Buddhas, and angels could exist in this world, and Taoists were not allowed to exist? Could it be that with the Heaven Alliance, Tao Alliance, and Profound Alliance in the Yilin mainland, my fortune gate is not allowed to appear and the Profound Alliance is not allowed to perish? Survival of the fittest, that's all there is to it." "Haha, fellow Taoist is right." Jade Archive Xiaohua laughed and looked around. "So what? Didn't our Tao sect suppress the Confucian cultivators, the Buddhist sect, and the demon race with the power of our sect? Forcing the immortal world to join hands and set up an immortal array to separate the Tao sect? Take a look at our cultivation. Is it inferior to that of the Confucian cultivators, Buddhists, demons and even angels? When I walk on my own path, I don't care where it begins. When I walk on my own path, I only look at where it ends. Sandalwood. Maitreya Buddha said with a smile, "You are a Taoist, but what are we? So you're still wrong. No matter if it's Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, demons or even holy light, they are all laws. Isn't this the so-called origin of all laws? The laws of heaven and earth, the beginning of human relations, the origin of Tao, the beginning of faith." Jade Archive Xiaohua's body glowed with 9 colors, and various profound meanings bloomed like green lotuses. After an unknown period of time, Jade Archive Xiaohua suddenly opened his eyes and said with a smile, "There's movement in the quiet room. I'm afraid we've reached the Wuming mountain range. Thunderbolt Immortal, I'll have to trouble you to go and pass the cultivation method of the 9 transformations golden pill and the 39 golden body to Wuxia. Our trip to the Yilin mainland can be considered complete." "I don't dare to go." Thunderbolt Immortal hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Just a single Tao seed is enough to make I want to die. It's better to let Heaven Man go." "Damn it, can't you see that I'm refining the origin of water?" Heaven Man glared at Thunderbolt Immortal. "I'm not coveting your Tao seed." "Namo Maitreya Buddha." Maitreya Buddha said with a bitter smile, "Do you still want me to go?" "You go? If you go, you'll be slapped to death by the Taoist master." Heaven Man laughed. "You exposed him and you're the future Taoist master of the Buddhist sect. How can he let you live?" "Then let I go." As he spoke, Taoist Witch, who was usually quiet and had been in low spirits recently, appeared. Jade Archive Xiaohua knew that Taoist Witch was worried about the inheritance of the Wuming mountain range. He nodded and said, "Then I'll have to trouble you." "No problem." Taoist Witch raised his hand and grabbed the jade scroll in Jade Archive Xiaohua's hand. In a flash he disappeared. Fellow Taoist. Huang Tong and Feng Wu appeared just as Taoist Witch left. Huang Tong looked worriedly at the place where Taoist Witch disappeared and said, "I'll go with Taoist Witch." Seeing that a soul cultivator and a demon were so close, Jade Archive Xiaohua nodded, "Very good. Go and come back quickly." Seeing that Huang Tong had also left, Feng Wu said strangely, "Fellow Taoist, you're too careless. We're about to enter the Wuming mountain range. How could you let Taoist Witch leave? What about the Wuming mountain range? We might need his help." Yangxia's Mei Xianling is not too far away from the Wuming mountain range. We'll be there in a short while using our spatial escape technique. Jade Archive Xiaohua smiled and said, "Taoist Witch rarely takes the initiative to volunteer. How could I not allow it? Since the descendants of the Yi family can pass through the Wuming mountain range, why can't we? Moreover, Taoist Witch had a witch body, which was something we couldn't compare to. Now that I have comprehended the laws of heaven and earth, my main body can also condense a witch body. Even without Taoist Witch, I can still enter the Wuming mountain range." Then Jade Archive Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and smiled. "Bai Fei is calling for I outside the meditation room. I'll go out first." "Fellow Taoist, let's go." The clones bowed and waited for Jade Archive Xiaohua to leave before continuing to cultivate. The clones and Jade Archive Xiaohua didn't seem to notice that outside the space where Xinhua continent was, faint ripples were slowly forming like bubbles in the sea. Jade Archive Xiaohua flew out of the space and turned back into his consciousness. He looked at a yellow talisman that was 3 fingers wide in front of him and flicked it lightly. "Pa!" The yellow talisman exploded, and Bai Fei's voice could be heard laughing, Jinren Shao, you can come out now." "Hee hee." Xiaohua smiled slightly, and the token in his hand emitted a faint light. The light rushed out, and the door of the meditation room quietly opened. He saw Bai Fei standing there with a smile on his face. He opened his mouth and said with a smile, "Congratulations, Jinren Shao." "Congratulations, Jinren Shao." "Ah?" Xiaohua was stunned and asked curiously, "Fellow Taoist Bai, where did the congratulations come from? Jinren Shao has been in seclusion for many years. You must have been cultivating a secret technique." "I knocked on the door several times but there was no response." "I think your cultivation must have improved greatly," Bai Fei said with a smile. "Isn't this great news?" Xiaohua naturally knew that Bai Fei didn't knock on the door at all. He also knew that the secret technique Bai Fei was talking about was the jade scroll Bai Fei gave him. He also knew that Bai Fei was reminding him not to forget that the technique he cultivated in seclusion was given by Bai Fei. Seeing Bai Fei so calculating, Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He looked around and said in a low voice, "Fellow Taoist Bai, I can't compare to fellow Taoist's talent. I have been in seclusion for many years, and I feel that my cultivation has improved. But if you check carefully, it seems like it's still in the same place. I can't understand it. Bai Fei smiled slightly as if he had already expected Xiaohua to say this. He replied, Jinren Xiao, don't forget that this technique was given to me by the #1 person in the Yilin continent, Senior Zhang Xiaohua. How can ordinary cultivators understand the profoundness of this technique? I won't hide it from fellow Daoist. I really did have some gains in these few years. When we get to the Lost Land, how about I tell you everything? If Bai Fei didn't tamper with the Jade Scroll, Xiaohua would definitely be moved. But now, hearing this, other than disdain, there was only disdain in his heart. This kind of method of using a technique to threaten others, not to mention the current Xiaohua, even the low-level qi refining Xiaohua disdained to use it. This. Xiaohua still pretended to hesitate. He touched his nose and said in a low voice, this matter, how about we talk about it when we get to the Lost Land? So. Bai Fei frowned. Jinren Xiao, this Bai might as well say the ugly words. According to this Bai's understanding, the teleportation tunnel in the Wuming mountain range is very dangerous. This Bai has made a lot of preparations for this. If fellow Daoist doesn't express his attitude now, don't blame this Bai for not helping you if you encounter any danger in the teleportation tunnel. Xiaohua pondered for a moment. Then he raised his head and said, fellow Daoist Bai, if I can't even pass through the Wuming mountain range on my own, I presume that in the future, I won't have any important position by your side, right? Aha, so that's how it is. Bai Fei laughed and said, this Bai understands. Let's go. Lord Special Envoy has already sent a message. Zhuang Qin and Beauty, you have already gone there. This Bai wants to hear the truth from you, a choice. That's why I'm waiting here. Fellow Daoist Bai, please. Xiaohua smiled and asked Bai Fei to go first since he was going to put on an act. Bai Fei also went first. Xiaohua followed behind him and looked at Bai Fei's back. He was quite puzzled because Bright Moon Householder had clearly said that even the supreme experts of the Yilin continent like them weren't sure that they could pass through the Wuming mountain range. This Bai Fei was only at the late stage of the nascent soul realm. So, how could he be sure that he could pass through? Could it be that he still had some tricks up his sleeve? Xiaohua was puzzled and Bai Fei was holding his head high. The two of them left the cabin. When they arrived on the deck, they couldn't help but be startled. When they had entered the special envoy's flying ship, they had heard the disciples of the Liu Immortal Union say that many of the cultivators who had gone to the Tranquil Wind ship had died because of the spatial storm in the Heavenly Wind Forbidden area. Only 30% of them had returned. In other words, less than 200 people had returned. But now they saw that the deck was densely packed with nascent soul and gold core cultivators. There were at least several thousand of them. Xiaohua looked at Bai Fei in bewilderment. Bai Fei also shrugged his shoulders, indicating that he didn't know anything about this. You can. Chapter 50:14. On the deck, Beauty Yu and Zhuang Chen stood quietly in a corner. Seeing Xiaohua and Bai Fei come out, Zhuang Chen waved at them. What's going on? Bai Fei walked to Zhuang Chen and asked in a low voice. Zhuang Chen shook his head and replied, I don't know. Beauty Yu said, I came out early and have already asked the disciples of Liu Immortal Alliance. In order to go to the Lost Land, Liu Immortal Alliance sent 5 special envoys to find 5 groups of cultivators and led the branches to 5 places for selection. We are just one of them. Just before we arrived at Yuanzhong Mountain, the other 4 selected cultivators rushed to our flying boat. Moreover, I also heard that only our group of cultivators was unlucky. First, the number of people they found was small. During the selection there was a collapse of the maze, so the number of people who passed was even smaller. The other 4 groups each had thousands of people who passed the selection. Bai Fei nodded and said, if that's the case, then it's normal. Zhuang Chen was stunned and asked curiously, why? What? Bai Fei looked at Zhuang Chen and said with a smile, Liu Immortal Alliance went to the Heavenly Alliance to find cultivators with special magical powers to go to the Lost Land. If only 100 nascent soul cultivators like us went, then, wouldn't that be the biggest joke in the world? If I were the leader of Liu Immortal Alliance, these thousands of people would not be enough. I would also find 100,000 nascent soul cultivators in the Immortal Alliance. Speaking of this, Bai Fei stopped again and thought for a moment, 100,000 nascent soul cultivators are a bit too many. Not to mention whether the transmission tunnel in the Wuming mountain range can withstand it, these 100,000 nascent soul cultivators will attract the attention of the soul cultivators in the Wuming mountain range. At most 50,000. Damn it. When he heard up to here, Xiaohua's expression changed slightly. It wasn't just that, the face of Bai Fei who seemed to be in control had turned ghastly pale as well. Others might not know what Bai Fei was thinking, but Xiao Hua was extremely clear about it, and he couldn't help but curse in his heart. This failure Immortal Alliance truly deserves death. On the Dawn Rain continent, Foundation establishment cultivators are everywhere. There are very few Golden Core and Nascent Soul cultivators. The sect masters of the three major sects in the state of Shi are only late Nascent Soul cultivators. As for the Imperial Thunder Sect's sect master, Qian Lazy, although I have never seen him before, he is only a Nascent Soul cultivator. The Failure Valley Immortal Alliance sent 50,000 Nascent Soul cultivators at once. Even if only a tenth of them survived, it would still be more than 1,000 Nascent Soul cultivators. 1,000 Nascent Soul cultivators would probably sweep through the entire Dawn Rain continent. It's no wonder that Bright Moon householders said that Lien Feng was quite ambitious. Hee fellow Taoist Bai, you're overthinking things. Zhuang Qin suddenly smiled and said, Nascent Soul stage cultivators may not be considered much in the Yilan continent, but they are still mid-level cultivators. How could the Immortal Alliance allow so many Nascent Soul stage cultivators to enter the Wuming Mountain range? In my opinion, 20,000 Nascent Soul stage cultivators and 30,000 Gold Core stage cultivators should be enough. As he spoke, several more Nascent Soul stage cultivators walked out of the cabin. The Nascent Soul stage cultivator at the front had a huge body and wasn't wearing an ordinary Taoist robe. Instead, he wore a short robe with his thick arms and legs exposed. Even his chest was exposed, revealing a patch of thick black chest hair. Looking at the face of this cultivator, it was just as ferocious. There was a finger-wide scar on the left side of his face, revealing red flesh and blood. Coupled with the ominous glint flashing in his eyes, if an ordinary person were to see him at night, they would probably faint from fright. When this cultivator walked onto the deck, his face was filled with disdain. Then he looked around and his gaze immediately fell on Beauty Yu's curvaceous body. With greed and lust in his eyes, the cultivator licked his lips with his scarlet tongue and stroked the black hair in front of his chest. Then he swaggered over. Bai Fei was originally speaking in a low voice, but when he heard the footsteps, he couldn't help but turn around. When he saw the cultivator's appearance, his expression changed greatly and he cursed in a low voice, "Damn it! Why is he here?" Oh. Xiao Hua naturally also saw this ferocious Nascent Soul stage cultivator and asked curiously, "Who is he? Is there a problem?" However, Bai Fei didn't answer Xiao Hua. Instead, he took a few steps forward to increase the distance between him and Beauty Yu. Just as Bai Fei stood still, the Nascent Soul stage cultivator and the 4 people behind him had already arrived. The 5 of them surrounded Xiao Hua and the others. The Nascent Soul stage cultivator in the front opened his mouth and cupped his hands towards Beauty Yu. "This old man is Ing Yushan, Ancestor Jade Fat. How should I address this fellow Taoist?" Beauty Yu glanced at Ancestor Jade Fat and didn't answer. Instead, she turned to look at the center of the deck. There, Du Peng was talking to the 4 spirit-severing stage cultivators in a low voice. The 5 of them had a faint smile on their faces. "Damn it." An early Nascent Soul stage cultivator next to Ancestor Jade Fat cursed, "Didn't you hear my ancestor ask you something?" Sure. Seeing that Beauty Yu ignored Ancestor Jade Fat, Bai Fei couldn't help but look into the distance and said in a low voice, "Fellow Taoist, could it be that you think your words are more important than the special envoy? We are preparing to listen to the special envoy's teachings. How would we have the time to greet you?" Hee. Ancestor Jade Fat reluctantly shifted his gaze away from Beauty Yu and looked at Bai Fei. His gaze even swept past Xiao Hua and Zhuang Qin. The expression in his eyes was not without threat. Then he looked at Bai Fei again and laughed. "Your words? Are you threatening this old man?" Bai Fei shrugged and shook his head. "Fellow Taoist, this is the special envoy's flying ship. Even if I had 10 times the courage, I wouldn't dare to threaten fellow Taoist. I'm just reminding fellow Taoist. This old man has ears. Do I need you to worry about me?" Ancestor Jade Fat sneered. The other 4 Nascent Soul stage cultivators slightly staggered and tacitly blocked Xiao Hua and the others, separating them one by one. Woo-woo. At this moment, a violent wind suddenly blew in the distant sky. A black cloud was born from the horizon. However, that black cloud was already close in a moment. Everyone could see clearly that it was actually a huge black eagle. That black eagle's wings were several hundred feet long, as if it wanted to cover the entire sky. On the back of the black shadow, a bald cultivator stood barefoot. The sunlight shone on his body, causing layers of golden light to flicker. The pressure of a middle body integration stage cultivator was released without any restraint. He was truly like a diamond. The black eagle spread its wings and crossed thousands of miles in a flash. Although the pressure that was like the falling of the heavenly river didn't come close, everyone on the special envoy's flying ship couldn't help but tremble at the same time. Disciples. Du Peng and the other 4 spirit-severing stage cultivators didn't dare to be negligent. They shouted, "Quickly prepare to welcome Vice Alliance leader Xiong." Then the 5 of them rushed into the sky to welcome him. When the nascent soul stage cultivator named Ancestor Jade Fat saw this, she didn't dare to be nosy. She fiercely glared at Bai Fei and the others, then lifted her leg and walked to another place. There, several nascent soul stage cultivators took advantage of Du Peng and the others flying high and hurriedly waved at Ancestor Jade Fat and the others. Damn it. Bai Fei saw those nascent soul stage cultivators waving and cursed in a low voice. Xiao Hua slightly frowned and asked in a low voice, "Fellow Taoist Bai, do you know those nascent soul stage cultivators?" This Bai is a cultivator of the Illusion Immortal Alliance. I don't know much about the cultivators of the Failure Valley Immortal Alliance. Bai Fei's gaze fell on those nascent soul stage cultivators who were whispering and glancing over. His face revealed a trace of vigilance and disgust as he replied, "But this Bai has heard a little about these notorious nascent soul stage cultivators." Notorious? Xiao Hua was stunned and a bad feeling arose in his heart. Yes, notorious. Bai Fei didn't hide the disgust in his mouth and replied, "That Ancestor Jade Fat just now is a cultivator who is proficient in the shady business of gathering yin to nourish yang. He came from the Heiyang sect and had already raped and killed a Foundation establishment female disciple when he was a gold core stage cultivator. However, because he was the direct bloodline of an elder of the Heiyang sect, not only did he not take his life, he even went into seclusion to reflect on his mistakes and advance his cultivation. Then he was again **********. Xiao Hua felt a wave of disgust for no reason. He waved his hand and said, "There's no need to talk about this person. What about those few?" "Those few?" Bai Fei sneered and said, "Those few are each more powerful than the other. Look at that late nascent soul stage cultivator with a red face. He's called Ancestor Heart Devourer and specializes in eating people's hearts. Especially the hearts of beautiful female cultivators. That one with a face as white as jade is called Jade Face Scholar. His name sounds very refined, but he loves torture the most. Any cultivator who offends him, regardless of gender, will be skinned. In private, everyone calls him Skin Flaying Scholar. Look at that one." Bai Fei seemed to have done his homework very well. Not only did he point out those few notorious nascent soul stage cultivators of the Defeat Oak Immortal Alliance, he also pointed out the evil deeds of the Illusion Immortal Alliance's nascent soul stage cultivators further away. Hearing this, Xiao Hua's forehead was covered in sweat. Damn it, damn it, damn it. At this moment, Xiao Hua finally understood that other than wanting to occupy the Dawn Rain continent, Lian Feng also wanted to use the Dawn Rain continent to deal with these notorious nascent soul stage cultivators. It was the same attitude as the Heaven Alliance towards Lian Feng. "It's fine as long as you don't commit evil within my Heaven Alliance. As for how you commit evil in the Dawn Rain continent, it'll depend on whether you have the ability to pass through the Wuming Mountain Range." How many nascent soul stage cultivators could Bai Fei know? He could see the savagery of these nascent soul stage cultivators. Then what about the other nascent soul stage cultivators that Bai Fei didn't know? Alas, there's no need to think too much. Xiao Hua sighed and inwardly pondered, other than this Xiao and Bai Fei who sincerely want to return to the Dawn Rain continent, among the several tens of thousands of cultivators on Envoy Man's flying ship, who else sincerely wants to go to the Dawn Rain continent? And which cultivator with a normal mind, after obtaining a cultivation technique, would still want to go to the lost place and risk their lives? Those who want to go to the lost place are definitely not people with a pure mind. Their goals are all unspeakable. Their arrival at the Dawn Rain continent is definitely not a blessing for the Dawn Rain continent. It can only be a disaster for the Dawn Rain continent. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, cast a monthly vote, cast a recommendation vote, collect a collection, reward, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 50-15. Xiao Hua was furious. He looked up at the sky and saw that the Black Eagle had already landed. Du Peng and the other spirit-severing cultivators bowed. Vice Alliance leader Xiong casually stepped down from the Black Eagle. Xiao Hua looked at the mid-body integration stage cultivator who had been possessed by the demon race and coldly thought, As for the disciples sent by the Defeat Immortal Alliance to the Lost Land, there's Vice Alliance leader Xiong who was possessed by the demon race and a spirit-severing envoy who was possessed by the demon race. Can they still be normal human cultivators? Previously, Xiaohua felt a bit of regret. He felt that he shouldn't have wasted so much time in the Wuming Mountain range, but now he didn't regret it at all. If he hadn't endured until now, how could he have known about the Defeat Immortal Alliance's plan? How could he have known that the identities of the nascent soul cultivators heading to the Dawn Rain continent were so complicated? Even if the chances of these fiends passing through the Wuming Mountain range were very small, once they reached the Dawn Rain continent, they would be a disaster. Xiaohua absolutely couldn't allow this to happen. While Xiaohua was thinking, Bai Fei narrowed his eyes and didn't say a word. He seemed to be thinking about something. Xiaohua retracted his gaze and glanced at the gloomy Bai Fei. He nodded to himself. He knew that Bai Fei was extremely astute and would fuss over anything. If it was something that was disadvantageous to him, he would definitely not do it. If it was something that was beneficial to him, he would rack his brains and do it even if he had to sharpen his head. He had many shortcomings, but Bai Fei's attitude was still quite clear. Based on this alone, Xiaohua wouldn't make things difficult for Bai Fei. After a few more breaths, Vice Alliance leader Xiong landed with big strides. Du Peng and the others carefully followed behind. Although Vice Alliance leader Xiong had already retracted his combined pressure, his undisguised arrogance still suppressed the gazes of all the cultivators on the Special Envoy's flying ship. Vice Alliance leader Xiong looked around and frowned. Why are there so few people? Vice Alliance leader Xiong's tone was clearly unfriendly. Du Peng and the other spirit-severing cultivators' faces tightened and they all looked at Du Peng. Du Peng helplessly flew a few steps and bowed. Reporting to Vice Alliance leader, Disciple was ordered by Alliance leader to lead a group of nascent soul cultivators to the Heavenly Wind Forbidden Lands maze formation. Unfortunately, we encountered the Heavenly Wind Forbidden Lands Heavenly Wind. Shut up. Before Du Peng could finish speaking, Vice Alliance Master Xiong's expression changed and he roared, "Why are you telling me so many reasons? Could it be that he wanted to push the blame to the Alliance Master? Are you trying to push the blame to the Heavenly Wind Forbidden Land?" Du Peng hurriedly knelt down, his body trembling as he said, "Disciple doesn't dare, disciple doesn't dare." Vice Alliance leader Xiong raised his leg and kicked Du Peng's shoulder. With a cracking sound, Du Peng's shoulder caved in. Du Peng's body was tumbling in the air. He let out some miserable shrieks, but it was obvious that he was trying his best to endure it. Heading to the Lost Land to find a cultivation path for the disciples of My Liu Immortal Alliance was personally planned by the Alliance Master. Vice Alliance Master Xiong continued to speak loudly. My Liu Immortal Alliance spent hundreds of years and a lot of manpower on this matter. Now you actually messed it up. Tell me, how should I punish you? Vice Alliance leader Xiong was so ruthless that he wanted to punish the Special Envoy without saying a single word to the cultivators on the Special Envoy's flying ship. For a moment, all the cultivators felt as if they were walking on thin ice. No one dared to breathe. Vice Alliance leader Xiong. The other 4 Special Envoys who were distracted didn't dare to be negligent. They hurriedly knelt down and kowtowed. Although Du Peng lost too many cultivators in the selection this time, he worked hard for this matter. We all saw it with our own eyes. As the saying goes, if there is no merit, there is hard work. I hope Vice Alliance leader Xiong can be magnanimous and give him a chance to repent. Vice Alliance leader Xiong snorted coldly and didn't say anything else. He seemed to be thinking about how to deal with Du Peng. The entire Special Envoy's flying ship was silent. Even the mountain wind was so scared that it didn't dare to blow. Only a corner of the flying ship was seen clearly by Xiaohua. He sneered in his heart. He already knew the reason why the 2 demons were putting on a show. Fine. Vice Alliance leader Xiong thought for a moment and said, My Liu Immortal Alliance has always been fair in rewards and punishments. Since you all worked for My Liu Immortal Alliance, the Alliance Master has seen it all. Since that's the case, I won't kill this guy on the spot. I'll let him make up for his mistakes. Many thanks, Vice Alliance leader Xiong. The 4 spirit-severing stage envoys hurriedly kowtowed to express their gratitude. Du Peng also endured the pain and kowtowed. Du Peng. Vice Alliance leader Xiong said again. This time, My Liu Immortal Alliance sent out 5 envoys. The other 4 envoys each sent over 1,000 cultivators. Only you sent over 100 cultivators. It can be seen that you didn't put much effort into this matter. You should immediately send a letter to the Alliance Master and request for your subordinates to fill this gap. You should personally lead all the cultivators. to the lost land. Ah. Du Peng's face was originally filled with joy. However, when he heard this, his face turned pale and he said in a panic, Vice Alliance Leader Xiong, you, what? Vice Alliance Leader Xiong's face revealed a sinister smile. Could it be that you want me to kill you on the spot? With that, Vice Alliance Leader Xiong released his aura and enveloped Du Peng. The other 4 spirit-severing stage cultivators hurriedly said, Vice Alliance Leader Xiong, the Wuming Mountain range is too dangerous. All the cultivators above the nascent soul stage seem to have not passed through it. If Du Peng goes over, shut up. Vice Alliance Leader Xiong scolded, everyone knows that the Wuming Mountain range is dangerous. However, look at the thousands of cultivators below you. What are they doing standing here? They are risking their lives to pass through the Wuming Mountain range that you speak of. If they can go, why can't Du Peng go? Why can't his subordinates go? Could it be that they are the only ones who are brave and the Defeat You Immortal Alliance can only be cowards? The 4 spirit-severing stage cultivators were speechless. If you go to the Wuming Mountain range, you still have a chance of survival. If you don't go, you will only die. Vice Alliance Leader Xiong looked at Du Peng and said coldly, you choose for yourself. With that, Vice Alliance Leader Xiong ignored Du Peng and looked at the Special Envoy's flying ship. His gaze swept across everyone as if he was looking at them. Everyone unconsciously shrank their necks as if they were extremely afraid. You. Vice Alliance Leader Xiong suddenly said in a thunderous voice, you are the brave warriors of the Defeat You Immortal Alliance. Since young, you have shouldered the heavy responsibility of the tens of millions of disciples of the Defeat You Immortal Alliance. Now you have also shouldered the heavy responsibility of the Heaven Alliance. Now that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth has changed greatly. Vice Alliance Leader Xiong's voice echoed between heaven and earth. The nascent soul cultivators on the Special Envoy's flying ship all looked awe-inspiring, as if they had really become the brave warriors who saved the world. As for Du Peng, he nodded at the 4 spirit-severing stage cultivators somewhat sadly. His figure quietly flew down from the flying ship and hurriedly entered the cabin. The other Special Envoys looked at each other and looked at each other. They knew that Du Peng and Vice Alliance Leader Xiong were not on good terms, but they definitely did not expect that Vice Alliance Leader Xiong would hit him when he was down at this time. If you make a mistake, you will be punished. Not to mention the Special Envoys of the Defeat You Immortal Alliance. If I make a mistake, the Alliance Leader will also punish me. But if you've rendered meritorious service, then you must be rewarded. Everyone, don't worry. Once all of you step foot into the lost grounds, not only will all of you have opened a new chapter in your cultivation, you'll even obtain generous rewards from my Defeat Immortal Alliance. I am a little envious of all of you. If I had not merged with my body, I would have gone to the Wuming Mountain range to try my luck. Haha. Hearing this, some of the spirit-severing stage cultivators could not help but laugh, as if they felt that this boorish man was not what they thought in their hearts. Then, Vice Alliance Leader Xiong said a few more words of encouragement and turned to ask the other 4 spirit-severing stage cultivators, is everything ready? Yes. A slightly taller cultivator hurriedly replied, everything is ready. Only Vice Alliance Leader Xiong can come over. We are going to give out the number plates and prepare to leave. Leave number 1 to Du Peng. Vice Alliance Leader Xiong glanced at the flying ship below him and ordered. Yes, disciple understands. Hearing this, the cultivator nodded and asked in a low voice, however, disciple does not know how many disciples Du Peng will bring to the lost land. How many people are there now? Vice Alliance Leader Xiong frowned and asked. There are nearly 5,000 spirit-severing stage cultivators selected. Including those prepared by the Immortal Alliance, there should be 30,000 people. The cultivator did not dare to delay and hurriedly replied. 50,000. Vice Alliance Leader Xiong waved his hand and said, let Du Peng gather 50,000 cultivators. 50,000. The cultivator was slightly taken aback. Clearly, this number was beyond his expectations. He hurriedly said in a low voice, Vice Alliance Leader Xiong, 50,000 spirit-severing stage cultivators has already surpassed us. Damn it, did I say 50,000 spirit-severing stage cultivators? Vice Alliance Leader Xiong glared at him, scaring the cultivator into quickly nodding and saying, yes, disciple understands. While speaking, Du Peng flew out of the flying ship. The injury on his shoulder did not change at all. He bowed and said, reporting to Vice Alliance Leader Xiong, disciple has already written a letter to Lord Alliance Leader. Lord Alliance Leader has agreed to disciple's compensation. Vice Alliance Leader Xiong nodded and ignored Du Peng. The cultivator beside him hurriedly told him about Vice Alliance leader Xiong's orders. Du Peng was stunned on the spot. After a while, he gritted his teeth and said, "Disciple understands. Thank you Vice Alliance leader Xiong for thinking so highly of Disciple. It's good that you understand." Vice Alliance leader Xiong grinned and said, "I'll wait for the day you make up for your mistakes." Then Vice Alliance leader Xiong rubbed his chin and said, "That's right, I'm afraid your 20,000 disciples are not on the flying ship, so you won't be able to give out tokens today." "I'm not going to wait for this bullshit ceremony, Jianghu." The tall cultivator hurriedly replied, "Disciple is here." Vice Alliance leader Xiong raised his hand and said, "Give me token number 1. "Yes." The cultivator named Jianghu did not dare to delay. He hurriedly took out a palm-sized token from his storage ring. On it was the number 1. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it and give it a tip. Chapter 50:16. Vice Alliance leader Xiong took the token and looked down at the flying ship. He raised his voice and said, "Everyone, I still have other important matters to attend to in the Immortal Alliance. I can't wait here for too long. Therefore, I can't watch all of you bring the token to the Wuming Mountain Range. Today I will give this token to Du Peng. I hope he can atone for his mistakes and bring all of you to the Lost Land." As he spoke, Vice Alliance leader Xiong handed the token to Du Peng. Du Peng hurriedly bowed and received it. He replied, "I will not disappoint Alliance leader." Unfortunately, before Du Peng could finish speaking, Vice Alliance leader Xiong laughed loudly. The black eagle sitting cross-legged in the distance let out a long cry and flapped its wings. Vice Alliance leader Xiong's figure flashed and landed on the black eagle's back in the blink of an eye. His voice was like a thunderclap as he said, "I'm leaving. You can wait for me. Farewell Vice Alliance leader Xiong." Everyone including Du Peng hurriedly bowed. After the Black Hawk left, the 4 spirit-severing stage cultivators looked at each other and then sympathetically looked at Du Peng. The 4 of them wanted to say something, but when the words came to their mouths, they didn't know where to start. After all, the 4 envoys all had backgrounds. If they said something wrong, it would make Du Peng suspicious. Du Peng smiled and cupped his hands. "Thank you for your pleas. If it wasn't for you, I am afraid I wouldn't even have this chance." Sigh. Jianghu looked at the token in Du Peng's hand and sighed. "We thought that fellow Taoist Du's selection would be too few and Vice Alliance leader Xiong would reprimand us. After all, fellow Taoist Yuani has already reported this to Alliance leader, but..." As he spoke, Jianghu glanced at another spirit-severing stage cultivator. That spirit-severing stage cultivator was obviously very close to Vice Alliance leader Xiong. Seeing Jianghu looking at him, he hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Jianghu, don't look at me. I admit that I have a good relationship with Vice Alliance leader Xiong, but I also have a good relationship with Du Peng." Haha. Du Peng laughed and said, "This matter has nothing to do with you. I'm afraid it's something else." At this point, Du Peng seemed to want to say something but hesitated. Instead, he changed the topic and said, "This Du has already submitted a letter of apology to the Alliance Master. Today the Alliance Master is very happy to see this Du redeem himself. He has already revealed to this Du that as long as this Du can return from the lost place alive, this Du will have other benefits." Jianghu and the other soul formation cultivators revealed looks of envy. Jianghu smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist Du is indeed a lucky person. It's rare that you could survive such a dangerous situation. However, fellow Taoist, you should still be careful. The Wuming Mountain Range is not an easy place to deal with." That's right. Brother Du, you should think about how to pass through the Wuming Mountain Range." The rest of the people nodded in agreement. "Let's go. Today is a happy start for us. We're going to finish the task that Lord Alliance Master gave us. However, I didn't expect that because of this Du's matter, everyone would be delayed for a few days. This Du has already ordered the disciples to prepare a banquet. This Du will apologize to everyone during the banquet." Du Peng looked at everyone and squeezed out a smile on his face. At this moment, the wound on his shoulder hurt so much that his face couldn't help but twist. Seeing this, Jianghu and the others said with concern, "Fellow Taoist Du, you should take some pills and meditate first. When Vice Alliance Master Xiong makes a move, how can it be simple?" "Oh." Du Peng took out a jade bottle. As he swallowed the pills, he said, "Today no one can leave. You must drink with this Du. Perhaps after today, this Du won't be able to see you again. Okay, we'll drink until we're drunk." Jianghu and the others naturally understood the meaning of Du Peng's words. They looked at each other. Although they didn't feel the same way, they definitely felt the same way. Not to mention Du Peng and the others drinking and saying goodbye, Xiao Hua and the others had occupied the deck for half a day. After watching the farce, they returned to the meditation room. Seeing Ancestor Yuji looking over, Bai Fei hurriedly urged Xiao Hua, Zhuang Qin and Beauty Yu to return. Even when Bai Fei activated the token to open and close the meditation room, he could hear the sound of clothes rustling behind him. It was obvious that Ancestor Yuji and the others had chased over. Damn it! Bai Fei stood in the meditation room. His expression was calm as he cursed in his heart. He himself wasn't sure whether this sentence was cursing Ancestor Yuji for courting death or cursing Beauty Yu for being with him and finding trouble for him. Fellow Taoist Bai. Beauty Yu's voice was a bit hoarse. She said, "This is my private matter. If you find it troublesome, then let me handle it myself. I won't bring any trouble to everyone." Bai Fei knew that when he saw Ancestor Yuji just now, he couldn't help but move a few steps away, which made Beauty Yu unhappy. He smiled and said, "Fairy is thinking too much." Previously, this Bai had a trace of fear in his heart and felt that he wanted to stay away from this matter. This Bai doesn't deny that this Bai is a bit afraid of this Ancestor Yuji. After all, this person's vicious reputation is too great. However, since this Bai and the other fellow Taoists have already discussed and agreed to join hands at this time, can this Bai still take half a step back? Good. Xiao Hua clapped and said, "Fellow Taoist Bai's words, I like to hear them. However, I still don't understand. We are all on the special envoy's flying ship right now. Doesn't that Ancestor Yuji know to avoid some taboos? Why does she still have to be so brazen? Just based on fellow Taoist Zhao's words, this Bai must become friends with fellow Taoist Xiao." Bai Fei smiled and said, "Because fellow Taoist Xiao has never done evil before." Swat. Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "Didn't you say something about Ancestor Yuji? Why did fellow Taoist Bai mention I again? Do you know why Ancestor Yuji and the others don't avoid taboos?" Bai Fei said coldly, "Because they are originally lawless people, because they are originally deranged people, because they are originally extremely vicious people. In their eyes, there are only things they want to do. There are originally no rules, no fear. They are not the same as us and are not bound by Special Envoy Du's restrictions. Even in front of Special Envoy Du, they will restrain themselves for a moment. However, as long as they leave Special Envoy Du's line of sight, they will definitely do it again. They are also the outlaws of the secular world." Xiao Hua indifferently replied. "And that's right, outlaws. They don't care about their own lives and also don't care about the lives of others." Bai Fei nodded and said, "These people can only be killed." Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and said, "But, who dares to kill them?" Bai Fei sneered and said, "They have illustrious family backgrounds, powerful seniors, and they themselves have cultivation that the majority of cultivators don't have. Even if it is Special Envoy Du, do you think that at this time he will make a move to kill Ancestor Yuji? Probably not." Zhuang Qin hesitated and replied in a low voice. "So?" Bai Fei nodded and said, "We have to save ourselves." "How do we save ourselves?" Xiao Hua asked with interest. "Their cultivation is higher than ours and they have more people than us. And this is the most troublesome part." Bai Fei frowned and thought for a long time before discussing with Xiao Hua and the others. Xiao Hua listened for a few words, and it was nothing more than a scheme to lead a wolf into the house, so he lost interest. At this time there was movement in his space. Taoist Witch and Huang Tong had quietly returned. So Xiao Hua responded without a word, and his mind entered the space. After turning into Jade Archive Xiao Hua, he bowed to Taoist Witch and Huang Tong and asked, "Two fellow cultivators, this trip is considered smooth?" "Haha." Huang Tong laughed and said, "Yang Xia has seen our strength in the Tianfeng Forbidden Land, how would he dare to have any other ideas? When he saw that we had the 9 transformation golden pill and the jade slip of 3 mysteries, he was overjoyed and thanked us endlessly." "That's strange." Jade Archive Xiao Hua pinched his chin and frowned. According to the previous 2 times the Tao Master and the Tao Master acted, the Tao Master should have appeared by now. But why haven't we seen the Tao Master? "Fellow cultivator, you think too much?" Taoist Wu said angrily. "Previously, Taoist friend failed to modify the nascent soul and essence soul cultivation methods. That was why Tao Ancestor and Tao Master appeared to bestow you the Tao Seed. Now that you have modified the 9 Revolutions Golden Core cultivation method, why did Tao Master appear?" Jade Archive Xiao Hua laughed. "Haha, so it's not good for us to do too much." "I don't think so." Huang Tong shook her head and said, I think that either the Tao Master will appear before we enter the Wuming Mountain range, or he will never appear. What do you mean? Jade Archive Xiaohua asked with interest. It's very simple. Huang Tong explained, the Yilan continent was abandoned by the Shan Alliance, so the choice of the Shan Alliance is naturally the choice of the Tao Master. Why would the Tao Master appear in the Yilan continent without the Tao Master's orthodoxy? Yes, you're right. Jade Archive Xiaohua nodded and said, I think so too. We have never seen any traces of the Tao Master and the Tao Master in the Xiaoyu continent, the hidden immortal continent, the Western Paradise and the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. We can only see the two ancestors in the Yilan continent where the Tao sect thrives, because the Heaven Alliance and the Tao Alliance are here. Perhaps when the Shan Alliance develops again in the future, the Tao Master will take care of the Yilan continent. We've already done it, who cares if he comes or not? Taoist which said angrily again, if the Tao Master doesn't come, fellow cultivator won't modify the cultivation method? Also, do you think the Tao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance will let the Shan Alliance rebuild so easily? Seeing that Taoist which was in a bad mood, Jade Archive Xiaohua didn't say much and nodded, fellow cultivator, you're right. Of course, the Tao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance said it well, but who knows what they will do in the future. The two immortal alliances can't even work together, let alone the Shan Alliance that has already declined. Our goal is to modify the cultivation method, not to get any rewards. If the Tao Master really comes now, we'll be in a difficult situation. A new Tao seed. I don't know which fellow cultivator will be able to obtain it. It's better if he doesn't come. Of course. Huang Tong smiled and said, we didn't make this trip in vain. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian. Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward. Chapter 50:17. While speaking, Huang Tong took out 3 things from his arms and handed them to Xiaohua. These are the things that Shan Alliance left behind in the Yilin continent when they went to the 10,000 demon realm. Wuxia entrusted I to bring them to you. Sweat. Jade Archive Xiaohua did not even look at the 3 things and smiled bitterly. Fellow Huang Tong, even fellow Wu saw through Wuxia's plan. Why do you still want to accept these 3 things? Needless to say, these 3 things must be very important to the Shan Alliance. The leader of the Shan Alliance did not dare to bring them into the 10,000 demon realm, so he left them in the Yilin continent. Wuxia asked me to accept these things because he wanted to hand over the matter of rebuilding the Shan Alliance to us. Huang Tong shrugged and smiled, of course I know. But the problem is, we don't have the time and opportunity to rebuild the Shan Alliance for him. He didn't say it clearly. Looking at this shameless old fox, Jade Archive Xiaohua was also helpless. He raised his hand and grabbed, then let I see what these things are. The 3 things fell into Jade Archive Xiaohua's hands, and Jade Archive Xiaohua's body shook. The first thing he saw was a broken array diagram. As soon as this array diagram fell into Jade Archive Xiaohua's hands, a murderous aura rushed towards him. Layers of stormy waves of sword chi rotated crazily in this array diagram, condensing into a fierce sword array that wanted to get out of the sword diagram. And as soon as the murderous aura touched Jade Archive Xiaohua's hands, King, there was an earth-shattering sound of a sword. Jade Archive Xiaohua's body could not help but turn into a sword. A sharp aura that could pierce heaven and earth was born from Jade Archive Xiaohua's body, tearing the surrounding space apart. Damn it. Huang Tong was also stunned. Why didn't I have such power when I was holding this thing? Because you are not strong enough to control this immortal trapping sword diagram. Jade Archive Xiaohua's voice was like the sound of a sword, resounding in the sky. The sound of the sword was so ear-piercing that even the broken immortal executioner stage trembled slightly, as if it was afraid of the sword intent of the immortal trapping sword diagram. No way. Taoist Wu was also dumbfounded. He looked at the immortal slaying platform and then at the sword diagram that had transformed into a clear sword light. Within the sword light, there was a faintly discernible ferocious sword. Although it had yet to reveal its sword form, the incomparable coldness within the sword light made Taoist Wu's heart shrink. He couldn't help but exclaim, is Wuxia stupid? He actually gave such a supreme sword diagram to you? It's simple. Jade Archive Xiaohua's sword-like figure slowly shrank and descended as he replied faintly, firstly, he doesn't know that this is the immortal trapping sword diagram. Secondly, even if he knew, the laws of heaven and earth of the Yilin continent would have restricted this immortal trapping sword diagram. Without immortal spiritual sword chi, I'm afraid that he wouldn't even be able to see through this sword diagram. Thirdly, this is not the complete sword diagram. This sword diagram in the Shen Alliance of the Yilin continent is only a representation, a symbol. Jade Archive Xiaohua transformed into his human form and raised his hand to point at the clear sword qi. Clang. A surge of sword qi flew out from the sword qi and completely cut off Jade Archive Xiaohua's hand. In this space the sword diagram still had such power. This was even more out of Huang Tong and the rest's expectations. Jade Archive Xiaohua wasn't surprised. He raised his hand again and grabbed. Rumble. Countless space profound laws were born around the sword qi and rolled towards the sword qi. The sword qi once again transformed into countless sword lights, wanting to kill the profound laws. However, as Jade Archive Xiaohua closed his hand, all the sword lights disappeared and the broken sword diagram appeared in front of everyone again. This is an item from the immortal realm. Huang Tong's gaze was like lightning. She had already seen the supreme sword form standing proudly in the sword diagram. It wasn't something that could be created by the laws of heaven and earth of the Yilin continent. She couldn't help but remind him in a low voice. Jade Archive Xiaohua nodded. So I am considering how to deal with this sword diagram. Since it's called the Immortal Trapping Sword Diagram, then there should be some immortal trapping sword, right? Daoist Wu asked. Jade Archive Xiaohua shook his head and said, I don't know about this. I only know that this is the Immortal Trapping Sword Diagram from the sword diagram. It's a part of a big array diagram. There's an even bigger sword diagram? Huang Tong was a little dumbfounded. Then what kind of power would it have? Slaying immortals. Jade Archive Xiaohua replied indifferently, slaying immortals. As for what immortals it is, it depends on who is controlling the sword diagram. Hearing this, Huang Tong's eyes lit up and said, then what are you still thinking about? Of course you have to take it to the immortal realm. An ordinary man's wealth is his own ruin. Jade Archive Xiaohua sighed. He waved his hand and imprisoned the immortal trapping sword diagram. His gaze landed on the second item. The second item was a broken stone tablet. There were a few strokes engraved on the stone tablet, which seemed to be a part of a word. However, from these strokes, even Xiaohua, who was in the Jade Archive, couldn't tell what the word was. As for the stone tablet, it seemed to have an indescribable suction force that attracted Jade Archive Xiaohua's gaze. However, when Jade Archive Xiaohua's gaze fell on it, he could only see a misty brilliance. It was a piece of heaven and earth. However, Jade Archive Xiaohua couldn't tell what was inside. Either there was nothing inside the stone tablet, or the stone tablet had a restriction that surpassed Jade Archive Xiaohua's strength. Jade Archive Xiaohua couldn't see it. However, Jade Archive Xiaohua faintly smelled an indescribable aura from the stone tablet. This aura seemed to be a great opportunity but also a great danger. What's the origin of this thing? Huang Tong saw that Jade Archive Xiaohua didn't speak and couldn't help but ask. Jade Archive Xiaohua shook his head slightly. I can't tell. What? Even you can't tell? Huang Tong was surprised again. In this world there's something that you can't control? Yes. Jade Archive Xiaohua nodded. This stone tablet and the sword diagram just now are not from the Yilin continent. They should be the Xian Alliance's treasures. Xian Alliance has such good things. What about the Dao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance? It had to be said that Huang Tong sometimes overthought things. I don't even know how to deal with these two troublesome things. Why do you care about other people's treasures? Jade Archive Xiaohua said unhappily. Huang Tong snorted coldly. Once you enter the Xiao sect, you are as deep as the ocean. From now on, Xian Alliance is just a passerby. In your hands, how can you let others take advantage of it? Even if I can't use it, I will carve the word, Xiao, and place it here. After speaking, Huang Tong looked at the third item and asked, what about this? This. Jade Archive Xiaohua looked at the last fist-sized golden core in his hand. This golden core was engraved with a mysterious heavenly pattern and earth deed. Under the illumination of the spiritual light in the space, this heavenly pattern and earth deed gave off a beautiful luster. A cultivator seemed to be sitting cross-legged in this luster. Thus, Xiaohua smiled and said, this is a Xian Alliance cultivator's golden core 8 transformations. If you have the Xian Alliance's secret technique, it can allow a golden core 9 transformations cultivator to cultivate to the equivalent of a golden core 8 transformations cultivator. Now that the Xian Alliance has lost this secret technique, this golden core, I'm afraid it's Yang Xia's test. However, I don't know this secret technique. I'll have to disappoint Yang Xia. As he spoke, Jade Archive Xiaohua imprisoned the broken stone tablet and gold core, placing them together with the immortal trapping sword diagram. Turning his head to look outside the space, he smiled and said, Bai Fei and the rest should have finished their discussion. This poor Taoist will go out with them to kill Ancestor Yuji. How embarrassing. You still want to kill a nascent soul kid? Huang Tong waved his hand and said, if anyone asks, don't say that this old man knows you. Jade Archive Xiaohua smiled and left the space. His mind returned to its original position. Unfortunately, Bai Fei and the others were still thinking too much. 3 days later, Bai Fei and the others received the token from the Defeat You Immortal Alliance's disciple. When they saw their own numbers, they couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Taoist Master Xiao? Bai Fei saw that his own token had 2,373 written on it and couldn't help but be startled. He hurriedly looked at Xiaohua and asked, what's written on your token? Xiaohua raised the token and said with a frown, I's token is 2,373 too. Yes. Bai Fei sucked in a breath of cold air and said in surprise, I understand. Xiaohua had already understood when he received the token. At this moment, he pretended to be puzzled and looked at Beauty Yu asking, Fairy, what's written on your token? I'm 8,666. After Beauty Yu finished speaking, Zhuang Chen beside her smiled bitterly and said, I'm 7664. Damn it, we discussed for 3 days for nothing. Bai Fei cursed in a low voice and said, I neglected this matter. Since Liu Immortal Alliance has 5 special envoys for 5 rounds of selection, how could they all be looking for the Wind Underworld Wheel? The other 4 groups of cultivators are naturally looking for other types of soul tools. Our Wind Underworld Wheel and those soul tools should have a better effect when used together. Therefore it's impossible for us to be grouped together. But, there are only about 40 people who got the Wind Underworld Wheel. Zhuang Chen was still puzzled and asked, how many cultivators can they team up with? Xiaohua looked at this devil who was pretending to be stupid and said with a smile, fellow Taoist, have you forgotten? The maze formation in the heavenly wind forbidden land was discovered by the special envoys. If Liu Immortal Alliance wants to send disciples there, why would they let their disciples participate in the selection? When we return to the special envoy's flying ship, the special envoys can order some disciples to take the Wind Underworld Wheel away. When Bai Fei heard this, his expression changed slightly. He seemed to have neglected this matter and said in a low voice, but that maze formation has already collapsed. Nascent soul cultivators like us naturally can't enter. Xiaohua said with a smile, could it be that spirit-severing cultivators can't enter too? What about void refinement cultivators? Could it be that Liu Immortal Alliance only has nascent soul cultivators? Sigh. Bai Fei sighed and looked at the cultivators on the flying ship who had already received their tokens and were checking their tokens. Du Peng and the other 4 spirit-severing cultivators were wearing tight robes and were standing in the air talking about something. Bai Fei couldn't help but secretly worry about whether his scheme would work or not. At this moment, the disciples of Liu Immortal Alliance who were also wearing tight robes flew out from the deck. These disciples were holding tokens in their hands and the numbers on the tokens were emitting a kind of hazy luster that could be seen clearly from far away. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 50:18. After waiting for these disciples to stand in different places outside the flying boat, a voice once again sounded from high up in the sky. Everyone, this time, there are a total of 50,000 nascent soul and gold core cultivators heading towards the Lost Land. In order to safely pass through the Wuming Mountain Range, we will be divided into 5,000 groups of 10. In other words, from 1 to 10 will be a group, and from 11 to 20 will be a group. In each group, 1 and 11 will be the head of the group. The rest of the groups will be so. Everyone quickly find your own group and find the head of the group to register. Since Xiaohua's number plate was 27833, he was naturally in the 2783rd group. He looked all around and with some difficulty, he found the disciple of the defeated Immortal Union who held the 27,831 command plate. It was not that this disciple was hard to find, but because following the voice's command, several thousand cultivators flew up at the same time. The entire scene was quite chaotic and Xiaohua's line of sight was blocked. Xiaohua found it difficult to find his own group, let alone the other cultivators. Several thousand cultivators were like several thousand blindly flying flies, and only after a long while did they gradually become orderly. Xiaohua had just flown to the front of his own group when he saw a nascent soul cultivator holding a command plate flying over at a moderate pace. When that nascent soul cultivator saw Xiaohua, he immediately laughed and said, "Haha, so it's you. If she was here it would be wonderful." Xiao Hua's gaze indifferently swept over, and the corner of his mouth revealed a trace of a sneer. Wasn't this nascent soul cultivator the Jade Fat Ancestor from before? At this moment, the command plate in Jade Fat Ancestor's hand was quite eye-catching. Your Jade Fat Ancestor? Behind Xiao Hua, a slightly surprised voice sounded. Another nascent soul cultivator slowly flew over, one step slower than Jade Fat Ancestor. Damn it, Poison Stone Master, why am I in the same group as you? Jade Fat Ancestor looked at the command plate in this nascent soul cultivator's hand and unconsciously spat, cursing, I'm really unlucky. I'm the unlucky one. Poison Stone Master cursed, I'm actually in the same group as you, this thing that's neither male nor female. Haha, which thing that's neither male nor female? Tell me your name, I like it. Before Poison Stone could finish speaking, another sharp voice rang out. A beautiful female cultivator with long black hair flew over. Her clothes were red and green, making her look particularly gorgeous. Cough cough. When Jade Fat Ancestor saw this person, she immediately coughed twice. She actually had a disgusted look on her face. However, she didn't dare to show her disgust too clearly. Instead, she looked left and right and said in a low voice, Poison Stone Guru, who was speaking just now? Of course it's me. The female cultivator who had just called herself lousy changed her tune and said in a sweet voice, What? You actually didn't hurry over to greet me when you saw me coming? Shiqing. Old Ancestor Yu Ji flew into a rage and shouted, Which family's great aunt are you? You better explain clearly. Otherwise, even if this daddy doesn't have to go to the Lost Lands, I'll still explain clearly to you. Ioyo. The nascent soul cultivator named Shiqing curled her lips and said, Your ancestor even watched the moon with me on the mountain peak. If you don't call me lousy great aunt, then what should you call me? Cough cough. While everyone was talking, a cultivator with a body as tall as an iron tower flew over. He coughed twice and swept his gaze across everyone. He said in a simple voice, Are you all in the same group as me? Wang Chufan? Wang Dor God. Not to mention Ancestor Yu Ji being greatly shocked, even the last nascent soul cultivator named Shiqing was greatly shocked. In disbelief he cried out, Why did you also come? Since you all are here, why can't this daddy come? Huang Chufan, who was called Door God, smiled coldly. As he spoke, he flew to the disciple holding the number 27831 and asked, Am I in the same group as you? That disciple looked at the number 27,833 in Huang Chufan's hand and said with a smile, That's right, Senior Huang. You are in the same group as this junior. Junior's name is Shui Chong. Greetings, Senior. Xiao Hua stood to the side and watched. When he heard the nascent soul middle stage cultivator named Shui Chong call Huang Chufan, who was also a nascent soul middle stage cultivator senior, he couldn't help but be surprised. In his heart he said, Looks like this Huang Dor God has some background. Xiao Hua's thoughts were correct. This Huang Chufan naturally had some background. With him standing there, Jade Fat Ancestor, Venomous Master, and Shiqing didn't dare to say anything. Damn it. Back in the sky, Du Peng saw the chaos and cursed, This Du has been busy dispatching disciples these past few days and forgot about these cultivators. Such a mess. I'm afraid that before they even left the Changchang Plains, they would have been discovered by soul cultivators, right? Brother Du doesn't need to worry. Jean Tu said with a smile, There are only a few cultivators. When your tens of thousands of disciples come, just bring these cultivators away. Du Peng's eyes flashed with coldness. He said coldly, Most of these nascent soul cultivators are arrogant and unruly. This Du has a portion of Jindan cultivators among this Du's disciples. I'm afraid they won't be able to suppress them. Then kill the chicken to scare the monkey. Another spirit-severing cultivator suggested without hesitation. While they were speaking, thousands of disciples were already in position. They all stood orderly in the sky, quietly waiting for orders. Listen to my orders. Du Peng's figure flew out from the group of 4. He waved his hand and said, Disciples, return to your positions. Yes. Not far from the special envoy's flying ship, there was another flying ship of similar size. Following Du Peng's order, there was a chorus of agreement. Groups of nascent soul and Jindan cultivators flew out and supplemented the group of 5,000 that Xiao Hua and the others were in. Among them, 4 cultivators wearing blue robes flew to Shui Chong. The 4 of them cupped their hands toward Xiao Hua and the others. The nascent soul cultivator at the front first said, I am Sec Chi Feng. Greetings, fellow Taoists. The other 3 were Jindan cultivators. The 3 of them bowed and said, Juniors Hui Jin, Dian Hongji and Su Pei greet seniors. Shui Chong didn't say much. Instead he looked towards Huang Chufan. Huang Chufan nodded and said, N. Since Huang Chufan was like this, Ancestor Yuji Venomous Stone, and Shi Qing were even more indifferent. They swept their gazes and didn't speak. Xiaohua sighed and waved his hand saying, Rise? His tone wasn't without loneliness. Because Xiaohua already saw that these 4 cultivators, along with Shui Chong who was the first to stand in front, were all cultivators that had been possessed by the devil race. There wasn't a single normal human. It was to the extent that the defeated Immortal Alliance near Xiaohua were also cultivators possessed by the devil race. The entire area near the Special Envoy's flying ship was really a group of devils dancing in disorder. Different from Xiaohua's loneliness, Bai Fei was somewhat anxious. His situation was similar to Xiaohua's. After finding 2, 3, 7 and 1 nascent soul cultivators, he couldn't help but sweep his gaze around. Even when several groups of nascent soul cultivators came over, he didn't have the mind to say more than a few words. He was far from his previous shrewdness. Master. Xiaoya seemed to have sensed something and hurriedly transmitted her voice. Be careful, these nascent soul cultivators have ill intentions towards you. It seems like one of them is familiar with Ancestor Yuji. Bai Fei composed himself and didn't look at those nascent soul cultivators. He sneered in his heart, these damn things, even if I can't pass through Wuming Mountain Range, I'll take them down with me. I absolutely can't let them reach Dawn Rain Continent. While Bai Fei was speaking, a nascent soul cultivator flew over with 4 gold core cultivators. Bai Fei's eyes lit up. Wasn't the last gold core cultivator he was looking forward to Yi Yun? Bai Fei opened his mouth and was about to call out when Yi Yun hurriedly shook her head slightly, hinting Bai Fei not to recognize her. When Bai Fei saw Yi Yun's expression, his heart was completely at ease. He faintly smiled to show that he understood. Then he leisurely looked around as if he was calculating something. The nascent soul cultivator who brought Yi Yun and the others over wore a purple gold crown and looked very strange. He flew to Bai Fei's side and looked at the group leader. He cupped his hands and said, Senior Marshal Brother Lu, Disciple Hu Yi has come under the Special Envoy's orders to bring 4 disciples here to await your orders. Disciple Zhang Qin, Yu Yanli, Hizhua and Yi Yun greets the seniors. The 4 gold core disciples didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly bowed to the group of nascent soul cultivators. Haha. Without waiting for Senior Marshal Brother Lu to speak, a nascent soul cultivator at the side licked his lips and laughed softly. I didn't expect to be in the same group as the female cultivators. This old man's luck is really good. Senior Brother Lu frowned. Just as he was about to speak, a commotion broke out not far away. A tall monk with more than 10 skulls around his neck shouted, What capabilities do you have to be the leader of my group? How can the 10 of us pass through Wuming Mountain Range with you leading us? Hurry up and hand over the token. Senior? A cultivator with a soft but determined voice replied, This junior is under the Special Envoy's orders to lead the seniors through Wuming Mountain Range. Although this junior's strength is not as strong as yours, this junior has trained with all of you for several years before coming to Changchang Plains. As the group leader, this junior doesn't have any authority. Instead, this junior is responsible for coordinating the actions of the 5,000 groups with all of you. Instead, this junior is under the orders of the Special Envoy. This junior is far superior to this junior in this aspect. Who said so? The monk shouted, This senior can command 10 people with this token. This senior said so. Du Peng had already looked around and was waiting for someone to come forward to show his authority. He also understood that there would definitely be someone among these cultivators who would come out. As soon as Du Peng saw the monk open his mouth, he immediately flew over and said coldly, What's wrong? You're not convinced? Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it and give it a tip. Chapter 50-19. Lord Special Envoy. That disciple didn't expect that his words would really provoke Du Peng. Although he was arrogant and unruly, he wasn't a fool. He hurriedly smiled and said, Junior was just joking with this disciple. How could Du Peng allow him to say more? Whoa. He raised his hand, and his palm immediately expanded to several hundred feet in size. Then he grabbed at the monk. The monk panicked and shouted, Senior Du, this is a misunderstanding. At the same time he moved his body in an attempt to escape. However, seeing that the space around him was sealed and he couldn't teleport, even if he was a nascent soul cultivator, the monk gritted his teeth and shouted, Du Peng, you actually... Unfortunately, before the monk could finish speaking, Du Peng forcefully activated his dermic powers. The giant hand tore through the void and grabbed the monk's body. Du Peng's voice was like a thunderclap as he said, "Since you took the command token of my Defeat Immortal Alliance, then you have to listen to the orders of the disciples of my Defeat Immortal Alliance. If anyone dares to refuse, then they'll suffer the same fate as this kid." Boom. Along with Du Peng's voice, a brilliant light flashed above the hand. With a muffled sound, the monk's body was crushed into a pulp. Chirp chirp. A fat nascent soul was forcibly squeezed out from the gap of the large hand, its face full of panic. Boom. A green light flashed from Du Peng's nose. Before anyone could see what kind of magic treasure was inside the green light, the nascent soul's head had already been pierced through. The nascent soul's small eyes closed and it collapsed in Du Peng's hand. Du Pengyu looked around and his gaze landed on a nascent soul cultivator. He smiled. "Is that Patriarch Shirxing?" Yes, I am." Shivering with fear, old ancestor Shi Xen hurriedly bowed and replied. "I heard you have a banner for refining nascent souls?" Du Peng asked with a smile. Forefather Shi Xen turned pale with fright and hurriedly dropped to his knees. "This junior knows his mistake, this junior knows his mistake. Humph, useless thing." Du Peng shook his hand and threw the nascent soul to Patriarch Shirxing. Then he scolded, "What are you afraid of? It's a bargain for you." Patriarch Heart Devouring was stunned. After a while he said ecstatically, "Thank you, Senior. Thank you." As he spoke, he quickly opened his mouth and a black flag covered in blood light flew out. The moment the flag opened, countless miserable screams came from within. When the flag opened, the monk's nascent soul was sucked into it. Then Patriarch Shi Xan opened his mouth and the flag flew into his mouth once more. Du Peng threw his nascent soul away and flew into the sky. His eyes were like lightning as he released his pressure. After looking around he raised his token and said, "Although I'm a spirit-severing cultivator, I'll still take token number 1 and go with you to the Wumeng mountain range. Your group leaders are this old man's doppelganger. They can hear this old man's orders, and their actions can also be reported back to this old man through the token. Whoever dares to disobey my orders and try to play tricks in the teleportation tunnel. If they don't want me to reach the lost land alive, I'll make sure they die before I do." "Yes, we understand. We'll follow Lord Envoy's orders." The group of nascent soul cultivators trembled in fear, while the disciples of Liu Immortal Alliance answered loudly. Xiao Hua saw this farce and his face was as calm as water. Similar to Xiao Hua, Bai Fei also stayed out of the matter. When he saw Du Peng raise his hand to grab the big monk, everyone looked up at the sky. His figure moved slightly and floated to Yi Yun's side. He raised his hand and handed a storage ring to Yi Yun from his Taoist robe. Yi Yun was shocked. She didn't know why Bai Fei did this, but her expression changed slightly. She didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly took the storage ring. Her trembling and sweaty little hand even touched Bai Fei's finger. "You know." Bai Fei handed over the storage ring and looked up at the sky with the same expression. Du Peng killed the monk's nascent soul. Bai Fei transmitted his voice, "This is the medicinal pill I've found for you all these years. I was in a hurry that day and didn't have time to give it to you. Now that we're about to enter the Wuming mountain range, I'm afraid you'll be in danger in the teleportation tunnel because your injuries haven't healed yet. So I'm taking the risk to give it to you. Quickly find a time to take it." Yi Yun was a little angry at Bai Fei for taking such a risk, but when she heard that he was asking for medicinal pills for her injuries and even took the risk to give it to her, she felt sweet in her heart. She smiled sweetly at Bai Fei and nodded slightly, indicating that she understood. Hee. Xiao Yu's voice sounded in Bai Fei's ears again. "Master, your bewitchment technique has reached the point of perfection. This medicinal pill contains the void cloud pill, right?" Bai Fei frowned, showing a displeased expression. "Master, don't worry." Xiao Yu seemed to have noticed Bai Fei's displeasure and hurriedly explained, "What I mean is that Master hasn't refined the void cloud pill to perfection yet. If you give it to this little girl now, I'm afraid she won't be able to force out all of her absolute evil dark yin. It won't be as effective for Master's cultivation, as expected." "Humph, you talk too much." Bai Fei scolded in his heart and didn't say anything else. Bai Fei naturally knew that the void cloud pill wasn't refined to perfection, but the Wuming mountain range was full of dangers. He and Yi Yun could die at any time, so he wanted to seize any opportunity to improve his strength. After Du Peng showed his power, he didn't say anything else. He raised his hand and pointed to the east, where the sky was still gray and gloomy under the bright sun, and said, "Everyone make a blood oath." Yes. The disciples of the Defeat You Immortal Alliance who held the number 1 token answered in unison. They opened their mouths and spat out thousands of drops of blood essence. As the disciples cast spells, blood scars like blood shadows appeared in mid-air. Woo-woo. As these blood scars appeared, the heaven and earth vaguely emitted ghostly wails and wolf howls. Wisps of indescribable dark green mixed with black threads rushed out of the void and shrouded the space of nearly 1,000 miles. For a moment, even the scorching sun in the sky gave birth to a chilling cold. Soul technique? Demon blood shadow? Xiao Hua frowned and suddenly understood something. This wasn't out of his expectations. After all, the Defeat You Immortal Alliance was close to the Wuming Mountain range. Moreover, if the Alliance Master of the Defeat You Immortal Alliance coveted the Dawn Rain continent and wanted to pass through the Wuming Mountain range, he would definitely cultivate his disciples to cultivate soul techniques. But what Xiao Hua didn't expect was that these demons who possessed the bodies of humans could also use soul techniques. Moreover, they mixed their soul techniques with the demon blood shadows. Several thousand blood shadows flew out and rushed into the sky. Du Peng's figure followed and rushed into the sky. He looked at the other 4 doppelganger envoys and said with a smile, "Everyone, it's time to ask the Alliance Master's blood talisman." Okay. When the 4 doppelganger envoys heard this, they didn't dare to be negligent. They also flew into the sky and stood in a pentagon with Du Peng. Then each of them raised their hands and took out a fist-sized, blood-colored object from their bosoms. These objects were like amber and their edges were sparkling and translucent. Inside each of them was a bloody scar the length of a finger. These bloody scars were extremely thick, and there were tens of thousands of fine lines. They looked like a blood-red eye that was looking at the thousands of bloody scars in the sky. Damn it! Xiao Hua cursed in a low voice when he saw the power of the blood vessels in the blood-colored object. I'm afraid this Lian Feng isn't an ordinary nascent soul cultivator. He's a soul warrior or even a shaman. Maybe he wasn't kept in the dark. Instead, he colluded with the demon race. The demon race's target is the Dawn Rain continent while his target is the Wuming Mountain range. Xiao Hua came to a realization. Together with Du Peng, the other 5 doppelganger envoys urged their blood essence and chanted different incantations from their mouths. As the incantations fell into the blood essence, the 5 blood essences turned into 5 different blood spheres. These blood spheres seemed to be boiling and surging. In the end, they condensed into different shapes. Some were triangular, some were square. Go. Du Peng and the others' complexions seemed to be somewhat pale. In the end, they pointed at the blood sphere and lifted it as if it was heavy. With a shout, the blood sphere fell into the blood talisman. Boom. As soon as the blood talisman came into contact with the blood sphere, it immediately shattered and turned into a baleful aura that soared into the sky. A valiant power of the blood vessels swept away nearly 5,000 bloody streaks in the sky like a big hand. Whoa. Like the sound of green seal scripts, the baleful aura gave birth to all kinds of strange illusions. White bones, blood rivers, the netherworld, flowers, and so on flashed high in the sky like light and shadow. When all these strange phenomena disappeared, a talisman full of blood-colored seal scripts engraved with green seal scripts slowly floated down from the sky. Every time this talisman floated down an inch, a blood-colored mark would rush into the void and disappear. Du Peng then took out a bone case from his bosom. He didn't dare to fly high and only respectfully flew down to the blood talisman. When the blood talisman quietly fell into the bone case, he closed the bone case. His expression relaxed and he put the bone case away into his bosom. He bowed to the other 4 doppelganger envoys and said, "Thank you for your trouble." "We're nothing." Jianghu and the others faintly smiled. "We don't dare to take credit for working for the Alliance head. On the contrary, Brother Du has to work hard for this trip. Hee, please help me pass on a message to the Alliance head." Du Peng looked at the Wuming Mountain range in the distance and said word by word, "Succeed or die trying." Jianghu and the others cupped their fists and said, "We'll definitely pass on your message to the Alliance head. Please." Du Peng's face seemed to be filled with emotion as he raised his hand and said, "Brother Du, please." Jianghu and the others said with a solemn face, "We'll send Brother Du off." Du Peng nodded and took out the number 1 token. He opened his mouth and said, "Everyone." Instantly, the 4,999 tokens produced the same voice at the same time. Yes. At this time, the disciples of the defeated Immortal Alliance didn't speak in unison. Instead, they spoke in the same way as they usually did. These voices also came from the tokens in Du Peng's hand. "Let's go." With Du Peng's order, 10 groups flew out. The other cultivators of the 10 groups didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly followed in an orderly manner. They flew towards the east at a low altitude. Not waiting for these 100 people to fly more than 300 meters away, another 100 people flew out. Xiao Hua's group was the 7th group to fly out. Xiao Hua, like the other cultivators, placed the command medallion in front of his chest. From the command medallion, he heard the disciple named Shui Chong call out in a low voice. Seniors were setting off. Please follow this poor Taoist to fly this way. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 50-20. When Xiao Hua heard this, he didn't hesitate in the slightest and flew along with Shui Chong towards the northeast for nearly 3 kilometers. Then he followed the other cultivators and flew towards the east in a formation. When all the nascent soul and golden core cultivators had left, Du Peng took a deep breath and bowed to Jin Tu and the others again. Farewell. I wish Brother Du success. Jin Tu and the others did not say much and bowed to see him off. When Du Peng turned into a light shadow and flew in front of all the cultivators, Jin Tu and the others looked at each other and shook their heads slightly. They knew that Du Peng's trip boded ill rather than well and it would be extremely difficult for him to return. Let's go, everyone. Jin Tu looked at the special envoy's flying boat and said, today's matter is over. The next time Alliance Master wants to think about the lost place, I'm afraid it will be 1,000 years later. 1,000 years later. Another Funshin cultivator looked up at the scorching sun and whispered. By then I'm afraid I'll have turned into a skeleton. As he spoke, he turned to look at Du Peng's back and said, Du Peng's trip this time may seem like a one-way trip, but who knows if it's a blessing in disguise. Sometimes, I have the urge to rush into the Wumeng mountain range to see what's in the lost place and whether I can find a way to stop the loss of my lifespan. It's useless to think so much. Jin Tu shook his head. We've just activated our blood essence and sped up the loss of our lifespan. Now let's take the flying boat back. Don't use any spells. Then everyone said a few more words and landed on a flying boat together. The low-level disciples drove the boat and flew into the distance. Not long after, the world returned to peace. No one knew that 50,000 cultivators were valiantly heading towards the Wumeng mountain range and pointing their swords at the Dawn Rain continent. 50,000 cultivators seemed to be a lot, but in the Changchang Plains it was nothing. Not to mention this was a place for soul cultivators. All the mountains, trees, rocks, and rivers were slightly different from other places in the Yilin continent. Just like the 10,000 demons realm and the 1,000 demons sacred realm, everything was much bigger. A group of 50,000 cultivators flying low in the sky was really inconspicuous. Taoist Wu and Huang Tong had already been to the Changchang Plains and did not find any special traces. Therefore Xiao Hua did not pay much attention to it. He followed the other cultivators and flew at a low altitude. He observed the scenery along the way and waited to see what Du Peng and the others were up to. Since Wuming Mountain Range was one with millions of Meng mountains, this Changli Plain was also the border of soul cultivators. It was similar to the Bai and Stockade where Xiao Hua, Li Zongbao, and the others went on a journey. The climate there was extremely hot and there were many mountain ranges. On top of that, there were many rocks, not to mention green grass. Most of them were scratching the ground. Sticking close to the ground, there were things that looked like thorns. These things had some thorns, but they also had some green leaves. There were even some fruits that were smaller than gravel among the green leaves. Furthermore, there weren't any large trees on the mountain range. Occasionally there would be some slightly tall trees. They were no taller than 1 foot, but the trunks were extremely thick. There were also many branches on the trunks. However, these branches and tendrils were somewhat dry, and they were faintly dyed with a yellowish color. Seeing so many scenes that were similar to millions of Meng mountains, Xiao Hua suddenly realized something. He hurriedly shouted in his heart, "Fellow cultivators, because of the change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, millions of Meng mountains was barren. How many natives starved to death? How could I forget about this when I arrived at Wuming Mountain Range today?" Lightning Immortal smiled bitterly, "Fellow cultivator, we were not idle. When we broke into the realm from the 10,000 demon realm, we were already unconscious and you lost all your magic power. Then, you were schemed against by the devil race and fell directly into the heaven sacrificial abyss. You benefited from the disaster and obtained the Tao seed. Then we began to wake up. After that, we rushed to recover, but we had no time to save the world." Fellow cultivator Lightning is right. Taoist Wu also said, "I didn't have much free time. Although it took me several years to come here from the Tianfeng Forbidden Land, I spent most of these years absorbing the origin of water. Even when I arrived at Wuming Mountain Range that day, I paid more attention to finding the teleportation tunnel to the Dawn Rain continent. At this point, Taoist Wu stopped and reminded, "Fellow cultivator, there is a swamp in front of us. There are powerful soul beasts in it." As soon as Taoist Wu finished speaking, Shui Chang's voice came from Xiaohua's token. "Seniors, slow down. We are about to turn north in the next 10 miles. Ha!" Xiaohua laughed. It seems that the Defeat Yak Immortal Alliance has already figured out the situation around Wuming Mountain Range. From here to the heaven and earth confinement that you saw earlier, it's about 1,000,000 miles away, right? With the Defeat Yak Immortal Alliance's speed and method, it will take more than a year. Too slow. Lightning Immortal muttered, "Fellow cultivator, why don't we snatch that blood talisman and search its soul directly to see what means the Defeat Yak Immortal Alliance has? We will go there ourselves. There are not many good people among these cultivators heading to the Dawn Rain continent." "Yes, there aren't many good people." Xiaohua nodded and looked around. "It's nothing to kill these 50,000 cultivators, but the soul search might not succeed. Why don't we directly find the Defeat Yak Immortal Alliance's Alliance Master Lian Feng?" At this point, Xiaohua frowned and didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at Ancestor Yuji, who wasn't too far away from him. This reckless thing was actually discussing with Venomous Stone on how to kill him in the teleportation tunnel. Of course, it would be best to kill him in front of Beauty to achieve the effect of killing the chicken to scare the monkey and make Beauty submit. Kill. Xiaohua was instantly filled with killing intent. He wanted to follow Lightning Immortal's idea and kill these several tens of thousands of nascent soul cultivators who were possessed by the devil race. He wanted to search Du Peng's soul directly. But just as this thought appeared, a pure and holy luster suddenly appeared in the distant horizon. This luster streaked across the sky and blocked the path of the several tens of thousands of Defeat Yak Immortal Alliance disciples. Jianghu. Xiaohua was stunned and inwardly said in surprise, Why did she come here? Could it be that she discovered the abnormality of Du Peng and the others and wants to kill these devils?" However, contrary to Xiaohua's expectations, Zhang Jie didn't use any sacred light realm technique to look at the several tens of thousands of humans. Instead, he stood on a distant mountain peak and frowned as he looked at the distant Wuming mountain range. On the other hand, Du Peng, who was flying neither too fast nor too slow, had a tense expression as he hurriedly ordered the 50,000 cultivators to stop. He hurriedly flew in front of Zhang Jie and respectfully saluted, "Greetings, senior." Zhang Jie glanced at Du Peng with a face full of disgust and said, "No need to call me senior. I can't be considered your senior." Yes. Du Peng didn't dare to offend Zhang Jie and hurriedly said, But Junior really doesn't know what to call me other than this title." Zhang Jie originally wanted him to call him by his real name, but when she thought about how her name came from the mouth of a devil, she impatiently waved her hand and said, "Whatever. What took you so long?" "Senior?" Du Peng hurriedly smiled and said, "Going to the lost place isn't an easy task. Think about it, even with your strength, you can't find a way to pass through this heaven and earth restriction. How can we, the cultivators of the human world, pass through so easily? If we don't fully prepare, going to the Wuming mountain range is suicide. We've been preparing for almost 600 years. Zhang Jie sneered and said, "Could it be that you're plotting something again? Senior, please spare my life." Du Peng wanted to kowtow, but when he thought of the 50,000 cultivators behind him, he suppressed the fear in his heart and hurriedly begged, "Junior is just a small fly in front of Senior. I definitely wouldn't dare to have any thoughts. Moreover, Junior knows that it's impossible for Junior to pass through the Wuming mountain range. I still have to rely on Senior's help. Think about it, Junior wouldn't have any plans. However, the way to the lost place is still in the hands of Alliance Master Lian Feng. If he doesn't want to, nobody can do anything to him." Back then, the Alliance Master of the Heavenly Alliance issued an order for Lian Feng to hand over the way to pass through the Wuming mountain range to the Heavenly Alliance, but he refused. In the end, the Alliance Master of the Heavenly Alliance had no choice but to ignore this matter. Therefore, what Junior can do is to make this trip as soon as possible. As for the details, it's still up to Alliance Master Lian Feng. "You have so many disciples, how long will it take to get there?" Zhang Jie looked around and said, "How about I take you with me?" Just as he said this, Zhang Jie immediately noticed Xiaohua in the crowd. Although Xiaohua had concealed his cultivation and even his appearance was different from before, Zhang Jie, an angel of the Holy Light Realm, could still see through him at a glance. "Zhang Jie." Xiaohua hurriedly transmitted his voice to him, "I'm also going to the lost place. We have the same goal, so don't talk too much. You can actually hear me? Zhang Jie's holy face was filled with surprise and he asked again, are you still a cultivator of the mortal realm? That's all for later, I'll talk about it later. Xiao Hua was not afraid of Zhang Jie, who was suppressed by the laws of heaven and earth in the Yilan continent, and said softly, since you can't find the transmission channel to the lost place, why don't we follow this demon and see what tricks their alliance master Lian Feng has? Okay. Zhang Jie nodded slightly and looked at Du Peng. At this moment, Du Peng hurriedly waved his hand and said, Senior, please don't use any magical powers. Since Zhang Jie had listened to Xiao Hua's words, of course he would not use any magical powers, but he asked softly, why? Firstly, there are many soul beasts of the sorcerer god in the Wuming mountain range. Who knows if there are any particularly powerful ones? Du Peng explained, if we attract them it will be disadvantageous to this trip. Of course this is not the most important thing. The most important thing is, during this period of time in the Wuming mountain range, I will be training 50,000 cultivators. Although most of these cultivators are disciples of the younger generation, they have never been here personally. Not only do they not know the dangers of this place, but they also do not cooperate well with each other. Only after they have gone through this period of training can they cooperate well with each other, and only then can we safely pass through the transmission channel in the Wuming mountain range. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and... Chapter 50-21. Alright. Zhang Jie nodded helplessly and was about to fly away again. Senior. Du Peng hurriedly called out. Don't worry. If you leave, I won't be able to contact you. If there were any abnormalities, wouldn't it affect our plans? Zhang Jie hesitated. She looked at the humans in the distance with undisguised disgust. As an angel of the holy light realm, she didn't even look down on humans in the mortal realm. How could she tolerate these humans who had been possessed by demons? She said coldly, although we have a cooperation agreement, I have my own bottom line. If you want to reach the lost land alive, don't create any more trouble. After saying that, Zhang Jie turned around and turned into a white light, shooting into the sky and disappearing in a moment. Damn it. Du Peng gritted his teeth and only dared to curse in his heart. He then turned to look at the demons and nascent soul cultivators who were frightened by the holy aura of the holy light realm in Zhang Jie's body and smiled. Everyone, did you see that? We're not the only ones who want to go to the lost land. There are many seniors and experts, and they can't pass through the Wuming mountain range alone. They still have to rely on us to defeat the Immortal Alliance. So don't worry. With such help, we'll have a better chance of passing through the Wuming mountain range and entering the lost land. Then, under Du Peng's command, the 50,000 cultivators followed the plan in an orderly manner, avoiding the powerful soul beasts and continuing to move forward. As for Xiao Hua, he thought to himself, damn it, an angel as strong as Zhang Jie also tried to find a way to pass through the Wuming mountain range, but she couldn't pass through it. Instead, she chose to cooperate with Du Peng, who was possessed by a demon. Why should I act rashly? Why don't I just follow behind them and see what different methods they have? Furthermore, the time spent in the Wuming mountain range is also very precious. Instead of killing all the demons and rushing to the Wuming mountain range, why don't we use this time to distribute the good seeds and millet seeds to the Yilan continent and the Wuming mountain range and save more people? Aha, this Zhang Jie is interesting. The Thunderbolt Immortal laughed. When she met us that day, she was hesitant and didn't say anything. I thought she had some secrets. So it turns out that she's working with the demons and is afraid that we'll find out. For the Holy Light Realm to be able to stand on equal footing with the Buddhist kingdom, they naturally have their own strengths. Maitreya Buddha World Honored One also said, this angel is similar to my Buddha nation's Arhat. She's not good at lying. Whatever she says should be true. Hee, there's no need to care about others. Xiao Hua said with a smile, everyone, I will be feigning civility here, I cannot leave as I please. The important task of distributing rice seeds and millet seeds will be handed over to everyone. Haha, it's all right. Huang Tong laughed heartily. Now that we have reached the grand completion stage, we can travel across the Yilan mainland in a flash. Fellow Taoist, you only need to ask the Fortune Gate disciples to prepare the seeds. Between saving people and killing demons, Xiao Hua easily chose to save people. In the following days, Xiao Hua coldly watched as ancestor Yu Ji and the others discussed how to kill him and how to conquer the Lost Land. He also slowly approached the core of the Wuming mountain range with the Immortal Alliance's disciples. As for the Thunderbolt Immortal, Taoist Witch and the others, They took the seeds and millet seeds prepared by the Fortune Gate disciples and used the space escape technique to travel to various parts of the Yilin mainland. The heavenly beings even took the Kunlun mirror and led many Fortune Gate disciples to distribute the seeds. In just a few months, Taoist Master Zhao's reputation had spread like wildfire in the Dawn Rain mainland. Only the Heaven Alliance and the Tao Alliance were not able to reconcile immediately. After all, the Tao Alliance had Old Man Gu Qiong, Taoist Ji Yen, and the Heaven Alliance had Bright Moon Householder and the Yi family's ancestor. The two super-immortal alliances had other interests to deal with and had to compromise. However, after the Heaven Sacrificial Abyss was unsealed, the Heaven Alliance and the Tao Alliance's cultivators began to interact with each other. The hostility that had been frozen for many years finally began to thaw. Xiaohua's name naturally replaced Zhang Xiaohua's name under Old Man Gu Qiong and Bright Moon Householder's intentions. Of course, Old Man Gu Qiong and Bright Moon Householder obeyed Xiaohua's instructions and did not dare to say much about his origins and whereabouts. They only said that Taoist Master Xiao was a senior from the Yilin mainland who had traveled the world in his early years. Now that he had returned, he was moved by his benevolence and had passed on a modified cultivation technique. In order to reassure the Yilin mainland's cultivators, Xiaohua had gradually become the spokesperson of the Tao Ancestor and the Tao Venerate under the two immortal alliances' influence. The cultivation technique was also bestowed by the Tao Ancestor and the Tao Venerate. The Thunderbolt Immortal and the others had traveled the Yilin mainland and naturally heard these rumors. They also guessed the thoughts of the two immortal alliances' leaders and laughed it off. After all, Xiaohua needed the power of faith. Moreover, the Tao Ancestor and the Tao Venerate had indeed bestowed Tao seeds. With these two Tao seeds, Xiaohua could complete the modification of the nascent soul cultivation technique and the nascent soul cultivation technique in a short period of time. Therefore, these rumors on the Yilin mainland could be considered to be true. Xiaohua and his doppelgangers were in full swing to save the world. The Yilin mainland's immortal alliance also approached the Wuming mountain range in an orderly manner. After leaving the Changchang plains, they began to enter the depths of the Wuming mountain range. The mountain peaks were getting higher and higher, and the abyss would appear from time to time. Many swamps, deep ponds and miasma filled the area. However, these were nothing in Du Peng's eyes because the Yilin mainland's immortal alliance had already left disciples in the mountain range. Every time they arrived at a new place, Du Peng would release a special messaging talisman. Before long, the disciples of the Yilin mainland's immortal alliance would come out to meet him and lead the 50,000 cultivators into the depths of the mountain range. Of course, there would always be accidents. Sometimes, after the messaging talisman was released, no disciples came over. Du Peng had no choice but to brace himself and barge in. There were also times when powerful soul beasts would appear in originally safe places, and the strength of these soul beasts would far surpass the divine incarnation level. And sometimes, an indescribable astronomical phenomenon would appear, and the Wuming mountain range would have a natural disaster that even Du Peng couldn't avoid. Therefore, seeing the gloomy sky getting closer and closer, the Yilin mainland's immortal alliance disciples and several thousand nascent soul cultivators also lost 30% of their numbers. However, as the saying goes, good people don't live long, but evil people live for 100 years. Those few people who would send voice transmissions to Xiaohua's ears from time to time, saying some dirty things such as Ancestor Yu Ji, Master Du Shi, Shi Qin and Huang Qufan, didn't lose a single one. They were all alive and kicking. At this time, Xiaohua already didn't have the time to care about these little flies, because after passing through the Changchang plains, the entire Wuming mountain range began to give birth to a kind of heavy pressure. Like the dark clouds before a rainstorm, it accumulated bit by bit and slowly pressed down on Xiaohua's heart, entangling Xiaohua's Naiwan palace, and entangling Xiaohua's quasi-ninth tribulation scattered nascent soul. As Xiaohua's body moved forward, his supernatural powers were slowly confined. Xiaohua was like this and so were his doppelgangers. Not only did they activate the space escape technique, but even the position of space gradually became blurred. In the end, except for Taoist Witch, the other doppelgangers simply hid in Xiaohua's body and didn't come out again. Compared to Xiaohua, Taoist Witch was much better. He was born as a witch and cultivated a witch body, so the influence of the Wuming mountain range's innate restriction was much smaller. When they were about to reach the core of the Wuming mountain range, Taoist Witch stopped and went back into Xiaohua's body. Even Taoist Witch found it difficult to move, so Xiaohua didn't dare to be careless. He took out the Kunlun mirror, sword gourd and other items from the space and put them in his arms in case of emergency. After placing the magic treasure, Xiaohua thought for a moment and waved his hand again. A thumb-sized translucent ring fell into his hand. It was a crystal skull. As soon as the crystal skull appeared in the Wuming Mountain range, a layer of mist immediately appeared on the crystal skull. The mist gradually filled the skull, and the illusion of the untainted land and the blood sea and the dried bones alternated between the untainted land and the blood sea. This crystal skull ring was given to Xiaohua by Elder Jianghu of the Huda Stockade after he returned from Wushan Ridge in the depths of the Million Meng Mountains. He said that it was the Witch King's Witch King token, and he invited Xiaohua to visit Wushan Ridge when he was free. He said that there would be things that Xiaohua couldn't imagine. Now that Xiaohua was going to pass through the Heaven and Earth Restriction Formation, he would be on the other side of the Million Meng Mountains. If there were no accidents, he would be in the depths of the Wuming Mountain range and most likely Wushan Ridge. Therefore Xiaohua took out the crystal skull ring and wore it on his right finger. On this day, less than 30,000 cultivators regrouped and flew to a place filled with dark brown sand. Then they stopped. Du Peng carefully took out a fist-sized magical item. The magical item was shaped like a toad, and it was still being activated by his magic power. The toad turned into a dark green shadow and rushed into the ground, disappearing from sight. Du Peng ordered through the token, "Everyone, let's take a rest." Thus, Xiaohua and the others descended and found a place to rest. Damn it, we've been flying for so long, but we still haven't reached the teleportation tunnel, and we haven't even seen a trace of the lost land. As soon as Patriarch Yuji landed, she immediately took out a jade bottle from her bosom and threw a pill into her mouth. While refining the pill, she cursed under her breath. "If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have come here." That's right. Venomous monk Du Shi looked around, his eyes filled with resentment. What kind of place is this? Not only is the heaven and earth energy thin, I can't even use my storage ring. My nascent soul is now trapped in my dantian and I can't move it at all. If a soul beast appears, how am I supposed to deal with it? Xiaohua put on an act and took out a pill and threw it into his mouth. He squinted his eyes and looked around. Although it was afternoon, the sun wasn't hanging above their heads. Layers upon layers of indescribable gloominess covered the sky, thicker than the dark clouds. Within that gloominess, there seemed to be layers upon layers of mountains, and also seemed to be surging waves. In the surroundings where Xiaohua and the others were standing, the air was also suffused with a kind of stifling pressure. Others might not be able to see it, but Xiaohua could see it clearly. Waves of cryptic fluctuations that were similar to that of a magic array were floating down, filling up the space and blocking the void. Not to mention the teleportation of a supreme cultivator, even Xiaohua's spatial escape technique was unable to tear apart this flying silk. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support it, cast a monthly vote, cast a recommendation vote, collect a collection, gift, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 50-22. What made Xiaohua feel somewhat gratified was that although he had yet to reach a higher level of mastery in his light escape technique as he flew, he could still see patches of brilliance like clouds in the sky. It was just that these clouds were much thinner than the clouds outside the Wuming Mountain range. This might not be enough to hide Xiaohua's figure, but it was enough to show that the light escape technique had a unique use under the restrictions of this world. The fluctuations here are indeed different from the three great forbidden arrays that this Xiao passed through all those years ago. As Xiaohua looked at the fluctuations that were everywhere in the surroundings, he pondered to himself. Looks like it's a different type of forbidden array from that immortal array. However, these fluctuations contain the power of mountains, soul power, and netherworld power. It's really similar to a soul formation. The problem is, since this is the Wuming Mountain range, which is also the origin of soul cultivators, why would an almighty sorcerer separate the Wuming Mountain range from the millions of Meng Mountains? Could it be that the separation of soul cultivators wasn't caused by someone, but by the power of heaven and earth? Also, these innate fluctuations seem to vary from person to person. If the confinement force I'm suffering right now were to fall on those gold core cultivators of the Defeat You Immortal Union, wouldn't they have been crushed to death? Oh, also, when nearly 30,000 cultivators were moving together, the pressure of heaven and earth seemed to have decreased a lot. Now that everyone is resting, I actually feel as if there is a huge mountain pressing down on me from the sky. I can't even move. No wonder people as strong as Long Shenxi and Bright Moon Householder didn't dare to take risks in the Wuming Mountain range. No wonder Du Peng wants to organize 50,000 cultivators to break through the Wuming Mountain range. While Xiaohua was thinking, a voice rang in his ears. "Hey brat, come here for a moment." Xiaohua was stunned. He stopped thinking and turned around to look at the source of the voice. Wasn't it Huang Chufan who was looking at him with his bell-sized eyes? Along the way, although Huang Chufan did not transmit his voice, every time he mentioned something, Ancestor Jade Fat, Venomous Master Poison Stone, and Shi Qing would clearly explain it to him. It was as if Huang Chufan was the leader of this group. Xiaohua didn't know what evil deeds Huang Chufan had done, but he heard Huang Chufan's voice transmission and the order he issued. Xiaohua also knew that this guy wasn't a good person. Therefore, Xiaohua only glanced at Huang Chufan indifferently. He didn't have any intention of moving, as if he didn't hear anything. Damn it! Huang Chufan was furious. He looked at the unremarkable cultivator who had ignored everyone along the way and didn't even say a word. He scolded, "I just asked for a medicinal pill from you. How dare you treat me like this?" Huang Chufan's words had actually given Xiaohua a way out. If it were any other place in the Wuming Mountain range, Huang Chufan would have already killed him. Why would he need to state his purpose of speaking? Unfortunately, how could Xiaohua give him this face? Xiaohua still acted as if he didn't hear him. This time he didn't even bother to look at him. Who? Huang Chufan immediately stood up and was about to fly towards Xiaohua. The group leader named Yu Shuichong already had an impression of these people's characters and temperaments. At this moment, he hastily flew up and said with a smile, "Senior Huang, Senior Xiao might be tired. Junior has some medicinal pills here. Senior, please give me some face." As he spoke, Shuichong took out a jade bottle from his bosom and handed it over with a smile on his face. "Get lost." Huang Chufan was obviously angry. With a low roar, he waved his right hand and a strange force suddenly appeared and hit Shuichong's chest. Shuichong didn't expect that Huang Chufan would make a move just like that. Moreover, in a place where his nascent soul was imprisoned, he was still able to use a secret technique. He was careless and was hit by the force. His body rolled and fell into the sand on the ground. Shuichong didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly picked up the token and prepared to send a message. But at this moment, his eyes fell on the sand beside him. He saw that the sand was slightly trembling and rotating, rolling towards a depression, as if the earth was silently shaking. Shuichong seemed to think of something. His face was filled with fear. Black chi immediately surged around his body. He no longer concealed his devil cultivation. He turned into a bloody shadow and rushed into the sky, shouting, "Mirage, it's the mirage of the sorcerer." Shuichong was so shocked that he forgot to activate the token, but his devil chi was particularly conspicuous in the eyes of everyone. Although Shuichong was very far away from Du Peng saw it at a glance. His face changed drastically and he cursed angrily and was about to fly over. However, when Du Peng heard Shuichong shout, "Shaman God's Mirage," his expression changed drastically. He couldn't be bothered to punish and berate Shuichong. Instead, he shook the token in his hand. He didn't care whether the token had been activated or not as he shouted loudly, "Disciples, quickly leave this place." After that, Du Peng hurriedly flew away into the distance. Moreover, just as Du Peng flew away, he hurriedly sent a voice transmission to the sky, "Senior, help! Senior, help!" Obviously, Du Peng knew this mirage very well and knew that he was no match for it. Shuichong's panic and Du Peng's panic were all seen in the eyes of the disciples. The disciples of the Defeat Valley Immortal Union flew up from their resting place and shouted to the surroundings. When Shuichong was sent flying by Huang Chufan, Xiaohua was quietly standing on top of a rock. He looked at Huang Chufan who was angrily flying towards him as if he was scared silly. Shuichong shouted and rushed into the sky to escape. Huang Chufan had already raised his fist, and the stone pillar-like arm broke through the air, making a boom 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 sound. Xiaohua didn't doubt that if he was an ordinary nascent soul cultivator, and his nascent soul was now imprisoned by the restriction of the Wuming Mountain range, this punch would definitely smash his head. "You brought this upon yourself, you can't live." Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and looked at the fist coming towards him. He didn't have any intention of dodging and only said coldly, "Mirage?" Shuichong's exclamation came into Huang Chufan's ears at this time. Huang Chufan obviously didn't know what mirage was. His expression was only slightly stunned, and even the fist that was smashing towards Xiaohua's head didn't stop. However, just when Huang Chufan had an evil grin on his face and saw that his fist was about to land on Xiaohua's head, and that seemingly unyielding iron bone was about to be smashed by him, a strange gust of wind suddenly emerged from the ground below Huang Chufan. The gravel that was still spiraling and trembling a moment ago suddenly soared into the sky. A yellow-brown shadow that was at least several hundred zhang in size rose from the ground and swept towards Xiaohua and Huang Chufan. What made Huang Chufan feel strange was that there was no special sound where this shadow broke through the air. There were even several extremely sharp suction forces in the nearby space, and 3 to 5 gusts of wind blew towards the light shadow. However, all the vigilance of a nascent soul cultivator was born in Huang Chufan's heart at this time. He clearly knew that the light shadow was the so-called mirage. Moreover, if he insisted on killing Xiao Hua, he would also be injured under the mirage's light shadow. Therefore Huang Chufan didn't hesitate anymore. He didn't care about killing Xiao Hua and hurriedly urged his body to follow the direction of the light shadow's attack and rush towards the sky. However, what made Huang Chufan surprised was that Xiao Hua, who was also enveloped by the mirage's light shadow, still had a faintly discernible sneer on his face, and his body didn't move at all. Is this guy really stupid? Huang Chufan didn't understand, but in just a moment Huang Chufan knew who the real fool was. Because just as he flew out a few dozen feet, the huge light shadow that was born from the ground suddenly disappeared, and above his head, a tentacle that was only a few dozen feet long suddenly appeared out of thin air. This tentacle was full of sharp spikes that were several feet long, and between the spikes, there were several vortex-like black holes. The sharp sound of wind and the suction force were emitted from these black holes, and just as Huang Chufan's gaze swept past, a strange light shadow flashed from the edge of the black holes. That light shadow was like a dozen huge tentacles that emerged from the space near Huang Chufan and fell towards Huang Chufan and Xiao Hua. Damn it! Huang Chufan immediately understood that the previous light shadow on the ground was an illusion, and the tentacles that fell from the sky were the real killer. Huang Chufan rushed up with all his strength, and the tentacles of the mirage fell with all their strength. In particular, the tentacles of the mirage streaked across the air at an extremely fast speed, and there wasn't much sound. When Huang Chufan came to his senses, the sharp tentacles had already approached, and the biting cold had already been transmitted from the spikes of the tentacles, causing Huang Chufan's whole body to be covered in a layer of cold sweat in this scorching afternoon. His nascent soul was imprisoned, and he couldn't use teleportation, and the amount of true essence that could be activated was also very little. Huang Chufan steeled his heart, and the muscles in his arms twitched with a piu-piu sound. A force that was fiercer than the one that attacked Xiao Hua just now was generated from Huang Chufan's arms, and his arms instantly became a little thicker. Huang Chufan raised his arms as if he was raising fire to burn the sky, and wanted to rely on the 8-9 mysteries that he secretly cultivated to avoid this disaster. Pooh! The tentacles of the mirage fell, and Huang Chufan's 8-9 mysteries golden body that he painstakingly cultivated was like paper. The spikes easily pierced Huang Chufan's arms, and the tentacles streaked past, breaking the bones and flesh of Huang Chufan's arms. Huang Chufan screamed in pain, and his body actually wanted to fly backward with the help of the force. However, before he could fly, the vortex-like black hole above the tentacles poked out with a woo. A skull that looked like a skeleton stretched out. The skull passed through the flying flesh and blood like lightning and fell on the top of Huang Chufan's head. Pooh! There was another muffled sound. The small head of the mirage smashed Huang Chufan's head and went straight into his body. The look of disbelief in Huang Chufan's eyes disappeared like a lamp being extinguished, and his body fell into the air. However, things didn't go as planned. Just as Huang Chufan's body fell, the small head above the tentacles of the mirage retracted from the top of Huang Chufan's head. On the small skull-like head, a nascent soul with tightly closed eyes was held in the skull's mouth. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it and reward it. Thank you for all kinds of support. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.